Hey, welcome, welcome. Just for you, Tommy. Church bells. Church episode 41, guys, is in session. Fucking rights. Church bells to start off church. Let's send out the texts for the day. That one sent and that one sent. All right. Exciting. I like whoever gave me that idea. I think it was Tommy, but I could be wrong. The chat was moving so fast. Whoever said I should use church bells to bring in church, thank you. That was pretty fucking cool. And welcome, everyone, to Church 41. Holy Christ, we've been at this for a long time. 41 weeks. We are just, 11 weeks away from being a full year. Welcome to my lovely friend Etienne, atheist I see.
Well, I went to Catholic school. I have nothing wrong with against people's belief in God.
Hey, I went to Catholic school too. They really produce a lot of atheists, don't they?
Well, when you read the Bible and you're educated about the dogmatic symptoms that are out there, it's pretty easy for people to come to their own conclusions. So I wish anyone love and respect and whatever spiritual enlightenment that they need, but please don't come to Church and start dropping your own science. We're here for hash.
Sure. Well, I want to welcome Nick and Brandon to the room as well. Nice quick jump on there, guys. Wow, that was like within the minute.
Morning, guys.
How are you all?
Doing very good. Doing very good. It's really nice to see you in the chat room, Nick. Or Brandon, both of you. I first saw your little documentary that your daughter was involved in. I guess when it first came out. Has it been a couple years now? Maybe 3 years or?
Which one? The Vice one?
Yeah, I think it was Stoned Kids.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, and then I met Michaela and her mother in Toronto a couple of years ago as well, and was also very touched by the whole story, and just, it's more than just a story. It's the importance of putting a new face on the end of cannabis prohibition. And, being an activist for as many years as I have been, and even just talking about in the chat room today, where we came from, that sort of angry activism, like, in their face, and we got the signs, and it's just so nice to see it slowly moving to a different venue, a different platform, if you will, one that even the most staunch, hardened prohibitionist has a hard time arguing with. And so I thank you for your bravery in making the choices that you made. That could not have been easy. I have 3 children myself, and I just that's a heavy duty situation that you were put in for sure. And I think you guys made some great choices.
Well, thanks, man. It was awesome that you got to meet them when they were in Canada. I would have been there myself, but there was no way we could have afforded so many passports on such a short amount of time. And so I just like, you know what, you go have fun in Toronto, I'll just stay here with our younger one. Michaela's doing awesome. She has a broken leg right now, so her summer's kind of screwed, but she's making do. Yeah.
Well, that's being a kid, isn't it? Isn't it funny, Wendy Turner, Colton's mother, who was in a few weeks ago. Colton was the boy suffering from Crohn's disease, and it damn near killed him. He had some serious Crohn's disease, a little bit more advanced than your average case, and he turned it all around with cannabis. And just the way his mom had mentioned, I just want to have, I just want my teenage boy to be to be angry and to not want to come to the dinner table and to, to get hurt skateboarding or something. Like, that's a normal life.
Mm-hmm. Jumping on a trampoline with her on her birthday. We got her a trampoline for her birthday 5 days after we got it for her. Now, I think her leg is her bones are a little weak from all the prednisone she had to take.
Yeah,
because her little sister is on there with us and felt the same impact, and it didn't happen to her. And so we're just like, man, this sucks really bad.
Yeah, that's terrible for sure, but hopefully she's building up the strength and she's consuming her phytocannabinoids and her essential amino acids. And I mean, dude, whether you believe it or not, like your interview at that moment in time with the dude from Vice, and the way you explained it so simply, it's just, I mean, I applaud it. I think it's just a real super necessary. This is the type of activism that gets shit done. And we're at that point right now. We need to get shit done. It's not over by any means. We do have people in prison for cannabis. We still have, you know, for instance, I went to, my mother invited me to a political gathering yesterday, and I'm not much into politics, but I thought, I'll go meet this young kid who's seeming to be potentially our new prime minister. His name is Justin Trudeau. He's with the Liberal Party. And I just thought, oh, I'll go see. I was quite skeptic in the sense that I don't usually listen to politicians. He did have some fairly good things to say about cannabis, a few things that were a little off pace and you know, like how it could potentially damage the developing mind of a child. I wasn't in agreement with, but my real bummer was when and he asked, when are we going to legalize marijuana? We got to get this done, man. You know, it can really save a lot of people. And he, you know, he was just honest and from the heart, and I thought, so this is a guy that fought for a country's freedom, that fought for a people's freedom, and the whole fucking crowd is laughing. They're snickering on. And it's, I just thought to myself, you know, I bet you more than half the people that snickered, this guy fought for your country. He's suffering from PTSD. He's had friends commit suicide in a number that most people couldn't wrap their fucking heads around. And the crowd is sitting there snickering at him. And I just thought, Trudeau answered beautifully, and he really sort of like, you know, thanked the guy for serving, brought it back. But I wonder sometimes where the mob mentality of people lies, and how potentially the mob mentality is the most affected mentality of the Prohibition. And it was
the mob mentality is developed based upon acceptance. Whatever human beings feel that the entire throng around them will accept is what they'll take part in and be party to, you know. So if one person snickers, generally the mass will as well. And that's where people like, well, you know, our leaders and our warlords of the past who've conquered things have relied upon that for that reason. You infuriate the mass, you win, you know.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
It's really sad because it can be bad for people who don't gain the acceptance of the crowd because your story gets lost in the midst of the people talking in hushed tones beside you, you know.
Well, that's how I felt for this guy, Brandon. I felt like because he wasn't able to, you know, potentially articulate his message maybe as well as some of the other people around him, that his message should have not been any less heard. And I just wonder why people can't simply, you know, give this guy the respect. And you know what, it happened a few times. There was another gentleman in the room, and of course this is all prejudice to the way we look. The war veteran had a tie, he had tons of tattoos, and so, you know, when he asked this question, everyone laughed. And Justin Trudeau said, "Oh, you know, even though you're wearing a tie-dye shirt, I didn't know you were going to ask that question." And then it happened again to another gentleman who was also completely covered in tattoos, looked like a pretty hardcore dude, like he'd lived a pretty hardcore life, and he had his arm up, I'm going to say, for an hour of the questions. And when he finally got his question, I mean, he was basically one of the most powerful people that spoke. And what he said was, he asked in regards to what we're going to do to help children get off this epidemic of pharmaceutical prescription drugs, which right now street gangs are using as currency on the street to purchase other illicit drugs, which is also epidemic: cocaine, methamphetamines, prescription drugs, and alcohol. He never once mentioned cannabis. And I felt like if we could have had those two questions asked simultaneously, like, you know, you said that potentially cannabis is damaging the youth's minds. I'd like to ask this guy who works with troubled youth, lives on the street, and literally just helps kids for a living that are hurting. And this guy, you know, he admitted, he's like, I don't have a pot to piss in. I'm just, my whole being is to help the children. And it was that was just interesting. Once again, that mob mentality. At the start, everyone kind of was like, oh, this guy, and then at the end, everyone was clapping because, what, like you said, the leader when Trudeau answered this guy, first thing he said, look, right off the bat, I want to thank you so much for the sacrifices that you're making for our youth. The youth is the future, no matter what your belief system is. That's just kind of a fact. The youth is the future. So it was interesting. We got 374 viewers in the room. I was kind of waiting for 420 and higher, and then we could get maybe Brandon to tell his story and to tell us a little bit about his journey. Of course, Brandon was invited and brought in today by one of our reverends of Hash Church, Nick Bradley, who is always helping us out. He's always doing well for us. Give thanks, Nick. We appreciate what you do for Hash Church, dude. You know, like when you first started offering your help to me, I accidentally classified you into this group of people that I get a lot of people messaging me all the time and messaging me, and they want to help, and I want them to help, but often their help is a little bit diluted, and I accidentally put you into that group, and I apologize for that, because you've been nothing but absolute champion, potentially one of the people that have brought the most powerful stories to Hash Church. So if I had more than 2 thumbs, Nick, I'd give you more than 2 thumbs up. I appreciate you, buddy. Keep doing what you do and never stop.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, it's something that since I've jumped into the industry, it's been my passion, and bringing the stories of the patients to the forefront, and driving the juvenile patient stories and the senior patient stories. That's what's changed and allowed this industry to jump in the fast lane and really get to where we're at in such a short amount of time. So, you know, I again, like you, I applaud Brandon and Wendy and the parents that are so brave to not only afford their children this treatment method, but to jump out there and put their neck on the line and tell their story to the masses. So, thank you, Brandon, and all the parents out there. So.
Well, thank you guys for all of your support. Without people like you bringing us all together, giving us platforms to speak on, we wouldn't have a place to tell these stories from that helps to, you know, change the way this plant and other things that we do are seen.
Well, that's it, and if you're not going to be taking care of the elderly and the youth, what kind of a society are you building? I mean, the youth is the future. The elderly got us where we are. We need to take care of them. We can't let them rot to death in old homes, which is just one step above what we allow our veterans. We allow them to rot out on the streets. So these are things that we need to address as the cannabis community. This cannabis community is growing to be bigger than cannabis. It's like cannabis is just this help. The actual community is everyone. It's I mean, Todd, actually, who just came into the room. I'll welcome Aaron as well from DNA Genetics. I was, by the way, Aaron, for my, I'll show you this because you'll appreciate it, I think. I thought it was kind of funny. I met our future Prime Minister yesterday, what is his name, Justin Trudeau, and I was, you know, you can't even see it, but I was wearing my DNA hat when I got my picture with him, so I thought you might appreciate that, even though you can't really see the DNA too well. There I am with our future Prime Minister, buddy. Yeah, I told him all about DNA Genetics.
He loves
Todd,
it.
welcome.
Can you hear me?
He's a
How you guys all
fan of the Tangy, I think. I think he's a fan of the Tangy.
A fangy, we call them. Fangies. I just coined that new term, by the way.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. My level is a little bit low. I was able to hear Brandon and Nick fairly quietly, but I could hear them. Welcome to Horatio, who's made it into the room today. And we are just cracking 420 viewers. And that was the number that I said we would pass things over to Brandon, and I think that's a decent amount of people who are watching live right now. I know your story well, Brandon, but I'm not sure how many of the people watching do, so why don't you tell us your story about Brave Michaela and the journey that your family has had to take since this began.
Right. Well, hi, my name is Brandon Krenzler. I am the father of Brave Michaela Comstock. She's a pediatric cannabis therapy patient who is now 10 years old. When she was 7, she was diagnosed with T-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. That's a particularly rare and aggressive form of childhood cancer. When she was diagnosed, the doctors told us that she had a 75% chance of remission and that they would immediately begin steroid and chemotherapy, which they did. About 2 weeks into her standard therapy, her oncologist told us that it wasn't quite working, and they wanted to counsel us for a bone marrow transplant and full body radiation protocols, which is something that Aaron and I completely resisted. And so instead what we did was we applied our knowledge about the beautiful cannabis plant to Michaela's treatment and went and got her an Oregon medical marijuana card and immediately began giving her full extract cannabis oil, or Rick Simpson oil, depending on what you call it. She got very, very, very high on her first few doses there, and she went into basically a healing mode. She went to sleep and she had fevers, and the oncologist told us that the fevers can be caused by steroids also. It's when you're experiencing apoptosis, cancer cell death, you get flooded with the toxins from the bad cells in your body dissolving away. And so 6 days after her first few doses, we had her bone marrow tested again, so they could get a standardized level for her potential bone marrow transplant, and they told us that she was in remission, and they didn't know how that was possible. And the oncologist actually used the term, quote, baffled. And Aaron and I knew what we had done, and we just couldn't help but smile to ourselves knowing that the plant that everybody demonized so heavily actually had a direct hand in curing our daughter's leukemia. From there, we went and told the story to Noel Crombie at the Oregonian, who subsequently put it out on the AP, the Associated Press, and it went viral across the country and the rest of the world. We began to tell Michaela's story that cannabis put her leukemia into remission, and that it is a viable treatment option for any pediatric patient out there who is currently undergoing chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or steroid therapy. And it doesn't work just for cancer patients, but many others. We, however, focus on pediatric cancer patients because that has been our path. And so we help kids now. That's what our family does. We grow cannabis, we make oil, we give it to kids. We try to protect the next generation.
Well, that's unbelievable work for sure. I mean, like I said, as a parent, I can't imagine going through it. It must have seemed like an absolute godsend just to have gone from the poisoning, from that other option, to the simplicity of using cannabis. I mean, my goodness, even as people who are staunch cannabis activists and full-blown, we know, myself included, like back in the 90s, I thought I knew so much about cannabis thanks to Jack Herrera, and I realized as the last 20 years have come, I didn't know as much as I thought at all, and I really had no idea the importance of this companion plant. And it's unfortunate that Chris Bennett wasn't able to come in and talk with us a little bit about the history of the companion plant and how cannabis has always been with human beings, and how it almost seems as though that it isn't a coincidence that this plant and humans have this intensely intimate relationship. It's amazing, really. Welcome D420K to the room, and yeah.
Hey, Brandon.
Just listening.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Etienne.
Thank you. You're a great role model for other parents to see that you can go outside of conventional medicine, that you can actually take that risk. But when did you know as a parent that you had to go there, that you had to take that risk? Because there was a point you had to kind of take an embarkation from when you're just a dad to now you have to be an activist. So what was that catalyst, and what did it feel like for you?
The catalyst for us to go public was basically protection. We knew that as soon as anybody found out that we gave our child cannabis oil, that there would be hell to pay if we didn't take the appropriate steps to protect ourselves and to gain the support of those around us, not just the cannabis community, but parents. Parents can be the biggest driving force for any movement because nobody wants to argue with a parent about their child. Everybody was a child, everybody has children or loves a child. And so Aaron and I, instead of keeping it secret, we decided we'd go public with the hopes that not only would it protect us from potential CPS intervention, but it would also protect us from going to jail. It would protect us from losing our child. It would protect us from the wrath of the closed-minded. And so that's basically why we went public. It was we wanted to inspire people. Yes, we do. But more than that, we wanted to protect our family. We wanted to remain all together. What we did was unheard of. Cash Hyde, Mike and Callie Hyde were the only other ones we'd ever found online that had given their kids cannabis. And, we just thought that they had support, they were protected, we need support, so we would be protected, because if we don't have that protection and Michaela's taken from us, then she has to undergo all the harsh, standardized chemotherapies and treatments without cannabis. And so the lesser of two evils is putting ourselves out there and risking ourselves. And we were already activists. We already spoke about cannabis. We already spoke about medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. We already did these things. And so it was natural for us to go ahead and develop the story that we had at our fingertips to be protection for us as well as inspiration for others. We wanted to tell people, look what this has done. Don't let them lie to us anymore. Don't turn your back on this. And we've learned that this is actually a fantastic first step in anybody's treatment. And we recommend that you start this cannabis oil when you have diseases before you even start other treatments.
It's weird for me to talk.
I would say one thing.
Go ahead,
just wanted to mention that one of the things that seeing Brandon speak on Vice, as well as Michaela, and the way she explained how it made her feel, kind of her explaining what stoned felt like, or being high, or being, a little bit, and I just thought it really was this important message to help normalize, because that really right there is one of the last, like, oh, the children, oh, what if they get stoned, and we can have CBD, but we can't have THC, and this whole sort of thing that's like, why is it a bad thing? Like when I remember Lester Grinspoon telling the story of his son suffering from chemotherapy, radiation, and going home and vomiting for hours on end. And then one day he smokes a joint outside of the hospital, and on the way home asks to go to the submarine place for a submarine sandwich. That is so touching and heartwarming that you're like, why is that a bad thing? Why is that I know, he's got red eyes, he's stoned. Oh, you mean that it relieves ocular pressure and can save your eyesight? Oh, look at him, he's all got the munchies, stuffing food. Oh, you mean if you're suffering from wasting syndrome and you're about to die because you can't fucking eat food, that you can increase your appetite? And so these things they all need to be flipped around, and I'm telling you, out of all that came out of this from my perspective, you healed your daughter, and you helped normalize something that, in my opinion, like you mentioned earlier about the mob mentality, that people should not be taken aback. Child, I had a conversation with a woman about 6 months ago whose son had a brain tumor, and he was 2.5 years old. He got in touch with me, and she asked me what she could do, and I said, well, potentially you could start taking high doses of phytocannabinoid extracts, the safest way you can get them, and consume them. And when I told her this, she came back and said, well, I've done research, and it sounds like just CBD is what is good for kids. So I'm going to hold off on THC, and I'm going to just give them some high CBD for a couple months. And I thought, look, I'm not an expert or anything, but I was like, well, I don't know. Everything I've heard suggests that THC, and I sort of gave her the name of the scientist in Spain, and she's been working on this, Christine, for tumor reduction. Like, THC is a fairly important component in that. So for the media to mix it up because of the non-normalization, because of the bastardization of the black cheap name that THC's been given. I just felt like you guys really broke through a powerful wall with that one. That's all.
Yeah, we have gotten a lot of conversations directed at us about our kid being high. And, you know, I used to get frustrated. I used to get overwhelmed with the question and not know exactly how to answer it because I was so worried about what people thought about it and what they'd think of us as parents allowing our kid to get, quote, high. But when you think about it, most of these parents give their kids Vicodin and Oxycontin, benzodiazepines, morphine, all of these things. Every single time Michaela ever went to the hospital for a treatment, they offered her, you know, morphine or narcotic derivatives, and we just look at them and be like, she doesn't need that. She doesn't need that. And they thought we were crazy. They treated us like that. There's been a few times when the doctors almost tried to force these narcotics on our kids. And she didn't need them because she had oil. We kept her oil regular. She didn't have to be away and without it, you know. And so when I talk to people about their kids getting high, I tell them, you know, if you're willing to give your kid a Vicodin when he's in pain or she's in pain, then you should be willing to take a chance with this oil because the high, it does happen, yes. There's a very strong amount of psychoactivity with concentrated cannabis oil. However, there's also something called human tolerance. And if you're patient and you're there for your child and you support them and work with them, you will build that tolerance for them and they'll be able to heal themselves and they won't be high anymore. And you know what? That's the same thing that goes to be said for antidepressants and Adderall and Ritalin. You can't just take your normal standard dose of those and be okay. You're going to be high as hell. And I mean really, really high. And people don't correlate the high from cannabis to the high from pharmaceutical drugs. Why? Because pharmaceutical drugs are legal and cannabis is illegal. So automatically the high that you associate with cannabis is demonized. When actually it brings you out of that shell you're stuck in with your disease. It brings you out of the horrible sides of your chemotherapy treatments. That's a good high. And you know, when we sit down and we tell parents about this high and how the high affects the child and makes their life, their quality of life much better, they begin to see and they begin to agree and they begin to tell people, oh, it's not so bad. And I heard you bring up CBD. Yeah, CBD is great for disease. CBD has been shown to stop the spread of cancer cells. But Michaela didn't take CBD. CBD is not what is responsible for her remission. High THC cannabis oil is. We worked past that high. She did just fine. We didn't try CBD until later in her therapy when everybody said it's what we had to do. We were wrong for THC. Try CBD. Try. So we did. And you know what? It actually upset her. It made her anxious. It made her uncomfortable inside of her own skin. And that's because we had the dosing wrong. We gave her just a little bit too much CBD. And it gave her anxiety. It stimulated her way far beyond what she's comfortable with. And so we learned right there that there's more to this stuff than we didn't understand. And so we started looking into CBD, and it's great for seizures. Yet 90% of the kids who are taking CBD for seizures find later that they still need to add small doses of THC to their regimen. Why? Because it's about the whole plant. This plant, of course, you know, this plant has thousands of compounds, terpenes, monoterpenes, sequesterpenes, cannabinoids, vitamins, minerals, all bound inside of its green plant tissues. And we extract it and we get out what we think is medicinal, but we're still only human. We don't know exactly what's medicinal. We know what gets us high, and that's what we're extracting for. We don't have the proper capabilities to study these compounds on our own without the help of scientists, so we do it on our own. And we say this works because it does. But we don't know exactly what causes it to work. So to say that CBD or THC is better than the other or more important is highly wrong. You know, we got to say we need to focus on whole plant medicine, and that's what'll be the answer.
Yep, it's interesting because our company in Jamaica, Cannabinoid Research and Development, are really the mission. On the business card, it just says pure plant profiles. That's what we want. We want pure plant profiles. No one's going to do it better than the plant. Wow, we filled up nicely here. Welcome Jeff Church, the Cannabis Reverend, and Mark Scialdone, our hash church chemist.
Good morning, everybody.
I do appreciate that you've had all these conversations, Brandon, with parents. It's really quite an interesting topic. The topic of not allowing, or even, I mean, honestly, you should write a magazine article or something about what you mentioned in regards to that high. That's not the high that people are thinking, but it's the high that allows your child to up themselves out of that, whatever that horrible shell of the disease or the suffering that they're in, open that up and get out of that headspace, raise that level of quality of life.
Isn't
isn't
that the same thing they're trying to do with prescription drugs, except for those prescription drugs that they're giving you are making you more sicker, they're charging you more money, and you can't make them yourself. You know? With cannabis, you grow it, you make oil of it, you smoke it, however you use it, you're enhancing your quality of life, whether or not I forgot where I was going. Whether or not you're paying for it. I mean, it's just I don't know, man. It's fucked up that we have to be put in this category that we can't help people with cannabis, you know. And
No.
slowly that tide's turning.
It's insane. And, from the perspective of the child, Brandon, I think it's great what you're doing with your child. I don't know if you know who I am, but as a child, I had histiocytosis X 9 times in 8 years. Between ages 2 and 10, I had 9 tumors. I had 10 surgeries. I went through radiation, chemotherapy for my entire childhood. And it was only 1979 when my mother started giving me, she read about it in Good Housekeeping, no less. But we did have to keep it a secret because of Child Protective Services and the fact that, this is, pre-Reagan years. It would have been immediate separation from my mom. And, when people talk about me as a child getting high on chemotherapy and radiation, while I was me getting high during chemo and radiation, because they were giving me both at the time, it's really missing the perspective of how low we feel when we're sick. Because when I had cancer and I was going through the treatments I was going through, I didn't feel normal. So if normal was in the middle of life, and happy and ecstatic is above normal, and down and depressed is below normal, I was already in the down and depressed stages because I had friggin' cancer 9 times and I was 10 years old, and I'd been through so many surgeries and so much chemo, and I was over life. I was depressed. I was sad, and it was a natural place to be. And when I started getting what you're all calling high, I was only getting closer to normal, which to me was just what normal people experience when they're not dealing with chemo, and they're not dealing with cancer, and they're not dealing with their friends in the hospital dying, or their parents crying, or any of the depressing shit that goes around being sick. And I think people that are normal, that are smoking weed and getting high, are comparing that feeling to how kids are feeling. And if you're starting 5 notches down at depressed and you're getting high, you may get high and not even be at normal yet. You just may be closer to somewhat happy. And I think this is something cannabis has been powerfully a mood neutralizer for a long time. If you're freaking out because your car got stolen or your dog run over or some shit happened that's beyond your control, you smoke a joint, you calm down, and you're rational about it. But on the flip, if you're totally depressed and you're going through chemo and you smoke a joint, it brings you back to normal. It brings you back to a feeling, you know what, maybe I'll make it through this and things aren't so bad and I can cope with this and I can get through this. And really that is so powerful. And, it's going to be the parents that are courageous enough, like my mom was a long time ago, to break the law. And there's that quote going around from that little child saying, I'd rather be legally alive than legally dead. And it's so true. And with so many of us that have gone to the point of facing death's door, realize that we have nothing to lose. When I did my THC Expo, I took a rainbow-colored ad out, and I thanked the gay and lesbian community for helping pass 215. Because if it wasn't for their motivation, we have nothing to lose motivation. We would not have medical cannabis like we have it here now in California, all over the world. And it's been motivated people that literally are on death's door that have had the motivation to make the biggest vocalized statements about how helpful it's been. And I mean, I praise what you're doing, Brandon. You know, you know, and it sounds funny, and I don't want to. I'm you know, no way cautioning what you're saying, but I used to get ridiculed all the time. People would get me up there and they'd say, "Oh, Todd, are you saying that cannabis cured your cancer?" And I would say, "No, technically I'm not. But what I am saying out loud is that cannabis helped me deal with the medication, helped me keep my appetite up, helped me sleep at night, helped me feel better about the situation, gave me an optimistic point of view. It did so many things for me that so many doctors would be willing to prescribe so many drugs for. The depression, the sleeplessness, the lack of appetite, the nausea, all of which I was getting out of cannabis. And without cannabis changing all these elements of my life, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. And you know, and the insult to my injury is when I got the internet. So I get the internet in the late 80s, early 90s, and I'm crawling around at slow speeds. And what I learned, I started studying histiocytosis X, my childhood disease, because it seemed interesting to me. And I started getting it in 1972, and I went through all this hellacious treatment between 72 and 79, 80, and then got it again in 86. Well, in 86, 87, Western medicine had this friggin' epiphany that they were treating histiocytosis X too aggressively, basically as this aggressive cancer that was, you know, going to take me out, and then realizing that, oh, this might just go away on its own if we don't treat it so aggressively. So they completely reversed the way they treat children that are now born with my disease, because literally these doctors are literally practicing medicine. And I suffered through the entire 70s with a compromised immune system, probably because I was getting force-fed chemo, force-fed radiation, and I mean force-fed. If my mother had said, no, F you, I'm going to take them out and not do this, they would have arrested her for child endangerment. Because if their opinion isn't respected, they will force-feed your child chemotherapy. And then to learn post-86, oh, our bad, it was all wrong. We totally misdiagnosed you, as we did every other child born through the 70s with histiocytosis X, but we didn't know better, because I had what was considered an orphan disease. So few children get what I had that they don't even get to study it, because there's not enough of us to study it on, which is really incredible. So when I started using cannabis in 79, I always wondered if simply just getting cannabinoids in my system, natural cannabinoids from smoking joints, helped reverse what I had. I had 9 tumors from 72 to 1979. And then my mom started letting me smoke her weed, and I went into spontaneous remission, they called it, from 1980 to 1986. I got it again in my left arm, and I haven't had it since. And I stay heavily medicated, obviously, the whole time. You know, but when you start having this conversation about all the things that cannabis is doing to alleviate a child's suffering or an adult suffering, you know, to bring them back up to normal. It isn't really getting high when you're going back to normal. It should be called normal at that point. I'm getting normal instead of I'm getting my child high, because your child's not normal when they're heaving and throwing up and freaking out and depressed and losing it and can't sleep and can't eat. That's not normal. You know what I mean? And sometimes high is closer to normal than a sick kid has ever seen in their life. And that's just something that, as I sit here from the child's perspective, I have to vocalize that, because I think it was harder on my parents watching me go through being sick than it was on me, because I was just there being sick. Watching them cry and feel depressed and helpless was gut-wrenching on a child, you know, and it's not easy going through any of this. And I mean, then to take away such a benign herb that has such a safety and effectivity record, it just to me is inhumane. And that's why for the past 20 years I've fought for this, because I think that parents like you and your daughter and, you know, my mom and me, you know, you have a right to try to heal yourself, especially when you have gone through all of these friggin' treatments time and time again, and they're not working. They're just not working. And I mean, at what point do we get to make up our own minds and think for ourselves? I mean, and you know, and I'm not trying to tell parents to go out there and overthink their doctors or to second guess, you know, good physicians, but get second opinions, get other doctors involved, and do study. Don't take a backseat to to your child's health or your health, learn, become involved. Remember, a doctor was only a human being that went to school and got an education and amassed a body of opinions. You know, it's really incredible. And you know, it's funny because me and Lester Grinspoon got into an argument over me had cancer because he was studying histiocytosis X from the 80s on and said it wasn't a cancer. And I said, go back and look it up in 1972 and tell me how you would have treated it. So he went and spoke to his cancer doctor, because sadly Lester has cancer, and he came back and actually apologized to me and said, you know, Todd, I did not think to look at it from the perspective of what we knew when you had it. I simply looked it up from what we know now. And to realize how different that is now compared to how we were treating you then, it brings me to tears that we tortured you like that with chemotherapy, radiation, and all these potentially unnecessary treatments, you know, because we thought we were helping you.
I hear what you say, and I agree with you 100%. Doctors that are treating Michaela get questioned by us all the time. I don't even really want to publicize how many times we've caught them red-handed being completely wrong. One time we actually stopped them from giving her a double dose of chemotherapy, which would have ended her life if she got another dose that day. And so, as I'm sitting here listening to you tell people, do your own research, question what you're told, seek second opinions. That's what we do, and that's what we tell everybody to do, because doctors do just practice, and the knowledge and information changes every year. And to be honest with you, the more prolific the pharmaceutical drug industry becomes, the more prescribing and less practicing these doctors actually do. Now there's a drug for everything.
Absolutely,
there's a drug for a drug for a drug for a drug, and that's how these kids are on 25 drugs. And I don't know who in their right mind will allow their kids to be on such a Lucky Charms concoction of drugs. I wouldn't. I would never. I don't care. I don't care at all. You are not going to give my kid 10 pills. I'm going to find another way to treat whatever their problem is.
Well, you know, I really do want to comment on that because, you know, we so casually will prescribe drugs over other drugs that would never be, and I want to make this point. The FDA has a protocol that they only allow single molecule drugs to pass through the FDA because a single molecule drug has an LD50 that is known. When you start multi-molecule drugs, you get what's called an LD50 or a lethal dose for 50% of the population that is not predictable. And when you cannot predict the LD50, they can't combine the molecules. So what they do is they won't, for instance, in the AIDS cocktail, they will not combine those 3 drugs as a single drug and give it to a person. But what they will do is they'll write 3 separate prescriptions, which is really quite unfathomable because you're in a situation where we, the humans, become the testing facility that the FDA won't even use because they're really not sure what's going to happen when they start giving us really toxic drug combinations, and really the test is on us because we all have organic chemistries within our body. That's why an aspirin might work with one person, it might not work with another person's headache. So they give us the friggin' drugs, and maybe your kid's going to make it through, maybe your kid's not. And that's really how they're practicing medicine. And most of the problems that happen to us happen when we're in the hospital. The hospital is one of the most dangerous places to be because nurses make mistakes, doctors make mistakes, people absolutely overdose patients all the time. And you're usually in a situation where you're too sick to even know what the fuck's going on. So you can't sit there and read your charts, although when I was a little kid I used to try to. But the point is realistically, we do have to figure out how to take care of ourselves. We do have to ask questions. But the only thing I want to mention too is that sometimes it doesn't help to go completely into the public. We're watching this woman in the Midwest now be prosecuted because her son simply talked about his mom using medical cannabis in school. They raided her, and now she's facing like 30 years in jail, which is insane. And the other side of it, I think, is you know, I had 5 doctors behind me when I was being federally prosecuted. Sometimes they'll use that as an example to make an example. And there is a balance. I mean, sometimes being over the line and having a ton of attention on you only hurts you more. And what I think should always be important to the people that are trying to help children are the children. And I totally applaud you, Brandon, for having the courage to step out and take this story. I mean, you've seen the culture high. We talked about Jason and Jaden. you know, parents like you are super important, but I don't want parents to think that if they go get a few interviews on the newspaper, they're automatically going to be protected from some redneck zealot sheriff down the street, because they're certainly not going to be. What they need is the support of their pediatricians. They need the support of their family physicians. They really need to talk to their radiologists and the people that are prescribing these drugs and get them educated, get them on their side. You know, 20 years ago, Bernard Bruding started a thing called MediWeed in Holland, and it was to get the coffee shops to sell cannabis to people like me that were carrying around medical cards for half price. And the reason really was because we were trying to build a bridge between the people that were using medical cannabis and their doctors. And the way we try to do that with what was called the Baysay Day, or the Coffee Shop Consumers Union in English, was by getting people motivated, like, hey, if you go talk to your doctor, you can save money on your pot. And people are like, oh, okay, well, then I'll go talk to my doctor. And people in Holland started getting doctor's notes, and that started the communication between patient and doctor, and that really built the bridge of understanding, because when doctors started listening to their patients and realizing that their patients had no motivation to lie to them. If the drug worked, they would tell them it worked. If the drug didn't work, they were more than happy to tell them it didn't work. We're just trying to get better, you know, and this is where I think more doctors need to be able to hear from more patients, more parents, and more people that are really experiencing this, and say, listen, you got to have broader eyes, because the doctors, I hate to say it so rudely, but I will, they're freaking nothing but they're politicians in a way. They're store-bought political jockeys that do nothing but hand out prescription drugs for companies that show up and shell them money to do it. And I mean, there's so much absolute interference from the pharmaceutical companies to promote their drugs over health, over well-being of the patient, over what's right for the patient. They just want a sale, that so many doctors are so quick to prescribe anything, you know, and they won't prescribe cannabis because there's no kickback for cannabis. There's only political misery if they support you and your decision to self-medicate. And you know, that's just something we got to tell people, as frustrating as it is.
Yeah. Thanks for telling us your story, bro. That's, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, like, I don't know, like, just the fact that they're trying to get you to do these immunization shots now, mandatory here in California. Your kid can't even go to school. Is pretty shitty. That they're just putting things on you that they don't even know what it is. You know, and yeah, I mean, I applaud Brandon and Todd, because you guys, you know, you guys are, Todd, you've gone through it. You just told us your story. You know, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. Brandon, you're going through it. It brings tears to my eyes. I mean, you know, it's a hard one. It's a hard one to, you know, to be able to come out and say these things that you guys are saying. You know, I mean, Brandon, you're putting your livelihood on the line. You moved to a great place. You live in a great place, but you still put your livelihood on the line to help your daughter. I can't find this job anywhere now. Yeah, I mean, you could move anywhere, you'd still do it. You know, you're helping. You're doing the thing. I mean, like, cannabis has been a part of my life, you know, since I was like 13 years old, and I haven't used it medically, but I know that. Exactly, it says there's a normal, there's like depressive, you know, and then there's the good. You know, cannabis has been my savior since I was a kid, you know, and I could have played soccer professionally. Instead, I went professionally in cannabis, you know, and this is I don't know, cannabis is the future. It's a great thing. I'm glad to be in the industry, and like I said earlier, if there's anything I can do for any of you dudes, you know, you can find me through Mark. He knows how to get a hold of me, or Bubbleman, or it's easy to get a hold of me. Aaron at dnagenetics.com.
You know, Brandon, I also want to say thanks on behalf of the child, because, you know, from my perspective, my mother was a hero, and it's parents like you that will think for yourselves that, you know, it might have been my mom saved my ass, you know. I mean, to be truthful. And if it wasn't for her having the courage to stand up and try something different, I don't know where I would have been today, if I would have been today, is a polite way to put it. So, you know, thank you from my perspective, because I know from watching my mom and everyone go through it, I always felt like it was harder on you all than it was on me.
Are we ready for a little bit of science?
Lay the science down for us, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Greetings from Chicago. I wanted to go back when we were talking before about THC versus CBD, just to put a little grounding on that. You know, these molecules bind to receptors that are found in our bodies. Everyone knows that the endocannabinoid system exists, and it's a system that exists in our body that uses chemicals and receptor expression to modulate a lot of biological function that the pharmaceutical companies were late to embrace. But be that as it may, all of them, without exception, have developed molecules, non-phytocannabinoids, that look like drug molecules that bind to these receptors. So they understand the importance of the receptors. And so like CB1, which is where THC acts on, is highly expressed throughout the central nervous system and in the brain. It's one of the most highly expressed receptors in the brain. When you think about a receptor, think about a lock. And the molecules, the phytocannabinoids, and so the keys fit inside the lock. And there's two types of keys. There's a key that opens the lock, and there's a key that closes the lock, and those are called agonists and antagonists. And so the myriad of biological function that these things attenuate is just enormous. They start all kinds of processes in the cell that's responsible for many different things. Conduct pharmaceutical clinical trials if they can't patent the medicine. So there is really no play for the pharmaceutical industry in cannabis. What they can do is they can try to understand how these receptors work and ultimately try to figure out other locks to fit those, or other keys to fit those locks, but ultimately they're going to have the same myriad of side effects that you hear whenever you listen to a commercial that's advertising any drug. It's just a management of all kinds of different side effects, and it's just not a way to maintain health. So yes, CB1 is extremely important, and that's where THC binds, and certainly with diseases that afflict the central nervous system, you would think that, again, it's basically the medicine that's in the plant that we need, which is THC, not just CBD. There's your science.
I find that THC is not just medicinal, but it's nutritionally necessary. When you take a vitamin like vitamin D, A, B, or C out of your diet for an extended period of time, you become sick. Not immediately, but slowly. It's a cumulative illness. You know, your systems start failing. You know, your nutrition it declines. Your immune system falls. And when you put the missing vitamin or mineral back into your diet, you start to notice an immediate change. And that's what happens with every single person I've ever met that consumes cannabis. It's like their body's thankful that they've gotten this missing, highly important nutritional supplement back into it. We have an endocannabinoid system, all of us, every one of us. And when I tell people all use is medicinal, it's because it's the only medicine you can recreate with and not die from, you know? And so when human beings are told drugs are bad, weed is a drug, don't use it, you're actually robbing yourself of a very vital nutritional supplement in your body, a source of health, and it leads you down a path of illness. And I think that that's kind of where the pharmaceutical companies have gone after figuring out, you know, what THC is and how it responds inside the body and what exactly it does. I think they've made a whole line of drugs to kind of treat the side effects that comes from a cannabinoid deficiency. And so, you know, I tell everybody, if you don't want to smoke it and get high, juice it. Get that THC into your system one way or another. You don't have to be high to be healthy. But if you like to get high, smoke it with me, you know?
Hey, everybody, can I blow your minds? So when I asked my mom how she learned about this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Or Brandon?
Yeah, we can hear you.
My mom told me she read about it in a Good Housekeeping magazine while she was literally sitting in a doctor's waiting room. And I always thought that was crazy as shit. So I'm cynical on everything. So I have to look everything up. But I later went and found the February 1978 issue of Good Housekeeping that would have been sitting in a doctor's waiting room in 1979 when my mother was sitting there bored. And I'd love to share with you this passage from the Family Doctor column, no less. Marijuana as medicine, with a question mark? This is, of course, everybody, February 1978. As research proceeds, scientists are finding that the major active ingredient in marijuana, tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, may be highly valuable in treating such conditions as glaucoma, asthma, or even terminal cancer. Some 3 million Americans suffer from glaucoma and eye disease that can lead to blindness. Early drug treatments, usually in eye drops, can often reduce fluid pressure in the eye and arrest the disease. Now, Sidney Cohen, MD of the University of California, Los Angeles School of Medicine, reports that small doses of THC have a pressure-lowering effect in glaucoma as great or greater than any other known agent. Asthma sufferers, too. Asthma sufferers may benefit from THC used as an aerosol spray to open up ear tubes. Hey, did you hear that, Rob? That might be a business plan for the future. In the lungs and stop osmotic and wheezing, says Dr. Cohen. Unfortunately, the THC also causes a marijuana-like, quote, high many patients find unpleasant, but new THC derivatives may have less of this undesirable side effect. 1978. And we're having this conversation in 2015 on something called an internet, and doctors are still pretending to not know what they're talking about.
Jesus. Down near 40 years ago.
Crazy. Say hi to Rob.
Good housekeeping is cutting edge medical information, guys. Start your subscription now. Hey.
I have a question, though. What is this internet thing you speak of?
It's a lot of tubes, man. It's all these big tubes. They go invisibly into my phone. Yours too.
That's pretty wild. 1978. Good Housekeeping.
Amazon.com, buddy. What's up? I couldn't believe I could find it.
And here's the
copy of that.
Here's the opposite I'm reading here in Forbes. The richest newcomer to the Forbes 2015 list of America's richest family comes at a stunning $14 billion. The Sackler family, which owns Stamford, Connecticut's based Purdue Pharmaceutical, flew under the radar when Forbes launched its initial list of wealthiest families in July 2014. But this year they cracked the top 20, edging out the storied families of the Bushes, the Mellons, and the Rockefellers. How did the Sacklers build the 16th largest fortune in the country? The short answer, the makers of the most popular, controversial opioid of the 21st century, OxyContin.
Oxys. Let's bang oxys, man. It'll all be good.
14 bill worth?
Yep.
Getting rich off, getting
Drugs
people
are
addicted.
valuable, man. Look at Capone and Noriega. Those guys were billionaires. You know,
They've
same
made
thing.
$35 billion since releasing it in '95.
A government-approved poison brought to you by the pharmaceutical companies, paid for by your health insurance. Yeah.
No, that's just
money
heroin.
grab.
No, you can't give your
money. It's all about the money.
Man. No, you know what? It can't even be all about the money because they print money. It's just part of a system they place upon us. I think it might be even like when Brandon was talking about being at the hospital and having to like be on your toes while literally the people who are supposed to be helping you could potentially accidentally, or who knows, you know, execute your child. Like he just literally told a story about them almost giving her a lethal dose of
the pharmaceutical
chemo.
companies are in business for profits. They're a for-profit business. They have to return profits to their shareholders, and the way they do that is they create customers for life. They want you
School
on
to
that
prison pipeline.
life. I see my father-in-law, I see my dad take, you know, like literally handfuls of pills. Has anyone ever looked at the entourage effect between all these pills? He takes a pill for this, a pill for that, a pill for that. You're taking all these pills. What the fuck, dude? It's poisoning people, burdening our healthcare system.
It's definitely pretty insane.
It's what I call the pediatrician to prison pipeline. You go to your kid's pediatrician with them. They give them their first dose of a opiate-based drug. 10 years from there, they're going to try heroin. They're going to try weed. They're going to try alcohol. They're going to try cocaine. They're going to try meth, because all these kids are trying to get that same feeling back from when they're 6 years old and they broke their damn arm and they got given that morphine. Chasing the dragon from 6 years old on. You know, that happens all the time. A lot of the people that I know that are my age, that are in rehab or kicking drugs, I have a lot of friends that got caught up in the meth epidemic here in Oregon. Meth is extremely bad here because all the farming communities, you can find everything you need to cook that damn drug right in your neighborhood. And so, you know, a lot of people have fallen victim to that drug, and I talk to them, and they all tell me the same thing. Well, I was on Adderall when I was a kid, and it felt just like that. Well, I was on Ritalin when I was a kid, and it felt just like that. It felt like home. It felt familiar. It made me feel good. And
Ritalin,
the other half of the people I know,
okay? Ritalin is extremely similar structurally.
I was on it when I was a kid. I was that 90s kid.
They're almost identical. You would see the same clinical effects in patients, especially children, if you feed them Ritalin and you feed them any of the other amphetamines.
I call Ritalin bathtub crank without the impurities. I mean, really it is, too. They've taken pharmaceuticalized the street drug. And these kids that are on heroin, 16 years old, shooting heroin, what happened to them? They're the ones that got given that OxyContin when they were 10 years old, you know? And I call it the pediatrician to prison pipeline. They give them a drug that's pharmaceuticalized that gets them high. All they want to do is get high. That's what humans want to do. They want to get happy. Getting high is happy.
Or I want to say again, getting high is not always getting happy, guys. Getting high is getting normal. For a depressed person that's feeling down, when you're saying they're getting high, it's almost accusing them of like happy time, and it's not. It's like when you're fucking down and you're thinking about killing yourself because you're dying of cancer or you're going through hell, it's not going to get you high. It's going to get you normal, and I wish people would look at that.
That's still a high.
Getting high is the physiological effect. It's the physiological effect of opening up the CB1 receptor and turning it on. It's just a side effect. The high that we feel basically means that CB1 receptors are being turned on and open. That's it. Period. That's what it is.
It is a high. If you're that low in depression, it's getting you high, man. It's lifting you up out of that spiral. It's lifting you out of that depression. It's a high. It's a very valuable high. All of these drugs, every one of them, the worst drug of all gives you the most beautiful high, it's said. And that's why it's so dangerous. You know, it's all a matter of protecting our children from exposure that sets them up for the chance to experience the harder drugs later in life. They're going to be accepting to it if it's promoted in different ways to them when they're young. How can you tell them stay off drugs and send them to DARE when you're giving them pills for a psychological disorder that their doctor says they have? It's hard to combat that when you're a parent. You know, you have these medical professionals that have a license that says they're smarter than the average human being, whether or not they are, and they question your ability as a parent. And if you fight back, what do? They turn you in and get your kid taken and give them that drug anyway.
Tom's there.
Yeah, I just showed an interesting article from a visitor I have in my room that was from 2007 that showed, well, here. Welcome to Hash Church, Carol. This is Carol.
Brandon, I want to say,
Morning.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Add this. This is very interesting.
All I was going to say is, you know, I just don't want to, you know, I understand what you're saying totally when you say get high, you know, and I just don't, I feel like what I guess where I'm coming from is that it's you know, when people say, oh, they're getting high, it's like they're celebrating or something, and man, you know, I know from the perspective of being sick that, you know, I'm not trying to get high and celebrate, I'm just trying to get not feeling so low, you know what I mean, and that's where, you know, I'm not bashing on the idea of feeling better. I think it's an important element to healing because your mental state and wanting to get better is so important to pulling through. It sounds weird, but when I was little, I swear to God, I could tell the kids that were going to die and the kids that were going to make it just by their attitude, as fucked up as that may sound. There was those of us who wanted to get better, and there was those of us that had a broken will. And it always touched me because, you know, you could give them a whole lot of happiness and they still wouldn't be back at what we consider a normal day, you know, or a normal feeling or a normal vibe, you know, so, you know, and I don't like the prohibition is basically using against us that we're trying to get our kids high and shit when we're really just trying to get our kids, you know, to not feel the ravages of their disease or to not suffer, really, because we're trying to alleviate suffering. And that's really a lot of what cannabis does. It alleviates the suffering of those who use it. And, you know, Aaron, you said that you've never taken it medically, but, you know, Dennis Perone caught mega shit for saying in People magazine when Prop 215 passed, that he truthfully felt that all marijuana use was medical use. And, you know, when I stopped and I really thought deeply of it, because I have friends that don't smoke, don't drink. And, you know, they're well-adjusted, healthy people that don't have whatever, the desires to get high or whatever, but, you know, how many of us self-medicate with cannabis as opposed to go and see our doctor about our medical condition or our sadness or anything? We just smoke a joint and get through our day, you know what I mean? And in many ways, I think it is a medical device, if you will, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, it perfectly makes sense, Todd. I mean, although I might have not use cannabis medically, I'm still using it medically, you know. It's a medicine. It definitely does, like on a stressful day, or, you know, when I was younger, I would have leg pains because I'd play sports, and cannabis, you know, I wouldn't think about my leg pain or this or that when I would smoke a joint. You know, I mean, it's been I guess it's been my only medicine. I don't take any pills. I very rarely ever drink, although I did get totally trashed at the Cannabis Cup, and I don't remember a lot. But other than that, it's just cannabis.
You know, I want to say that I got lucky when I was a kid, and, you know, when I was 12, they gave me a motorcycle again, and I was wearing a helmet and bouncing around trails, and my spine is fused, my first 5 vertebrae, and it was causing me a lot of strain on my neck and a lot of pain. It was like new pain. And when I went and asked my pediatrician about it, he joked with me, and I asked him for some medication for my neck, and he said, no, you're just going to become mentally or physically addicted to any of the opiates I can prescribe you. You're going to have to learn how to deal with it. And I was like, well, what should I do? And he was like, stretch, and maybe you could try smoking your mom's pot again. And he was joking at the time, but he wasn't joking about not wanting to give me opiates because he was afraid of what it would do to me because I was fucking 12. You know, what would that have left me down a road of? And I'm so glad that he made that decision and basically made that joke in jest, you know, go smoke your mom's pot, because really I think that he put me on a much healthier path.
Michaela's first oncologist called us criminal when she found out that we had been giving her cannabis oil, and they tried to kick us out of her current hospital and send us to another one, and we refused, and we demanded that we get another oncologist to take over her case. And mind you, this was the head of pediatric oncology that was her oncologist who called us criminal. And so we got a new oncologist, and he became very aware of the high quality of life that she was living during therapy. And he actually started sending other kids to the clinic where Michaela got her card. He's asked not to be named in this, but he sent about 5 kids now. And that, in my opinion, is so highly amazing. There's no other way to look at it. But a doctor, an oncologist, had his mind changed by one little girl, and it's saved the quality of life of at least 5 other patients from him. And we're seeing this more and more and more as these kids come out. We got Landon Riddle, we got Jason and David, we got what's the other? I can't think of all the rest of them right offhand. We have Roar. We have all these kids who are telling these stories, and each one of them possesses a very different, strikingly different disease that has affected the quality of life that they live so dramatically that their parents can't even work a normal job. And this plant, this oil, when it's given to them, it changes everything, and life comes back full circle for the whole family, not just the patient, not just the parents, but everybody involved in their life. The school teachers, they used to get yelled at by the autistic kids and beat up, and the entire class being disrupted. 30 children in one room learning math. Their whole day of education is disrupted when one kid acts out and creates such a violent scene. And so when that kid comes back to school high on weed oil, and he sits there and he learns math instead of acting out, doesn't that benefit now 31 plus people all in one moment? I mean, you got to think of the whole picture here. It's not just the one person getting high and helping themselves. It's an entire community of people that's surrounding these kids who are feeling the same benefits, regardless if they see that that's what it is or not. That's just my opinion.
It takes a community. You're right. And you know what, though? Doctors are not closed-minded people. When they see and they experience things like their experience with you and Michaela, it resonates reality. We wouldn't have so much support for medical cannabis if it was bullshit. The reality is that people are having their own personal experiences all over the world that are similar to mine and your daughters and yours being a parent, and they're realizing that, you know what, this is real. And we don't know that much about how much it can help us yet. We don't know all the benefits it can do. But from what we've already experienced in now, 30, 40 years, I mean, I'm over here reading A Good Housekeeping from 1978. 40 years ago we were tuned into this. We just need now to communicate this to our doctors, to our friends, to the people we know around us that can benefit. Because once we do, the truth will get into their heads. Dr. Lester Grinspoon said that marijuana per se is not addictive, but learning about it quickly becomes. And I think it's right.
And you know what? You're right. When you say doctors don't have closed minds, they don't. What they have is a need for a living. They went to school and paid $80,000 to get a license to practice medicine, and they are aware of cannabis. They are aware of all these different drugs and what it does, but they're also aware of supporting cannabis will lose them their license. That's losing their livelihood, their career path. If they went to school and accumulated all of that debt from the university, and then they lose their license to practice medicine, how on earth are they going to afford to pay all of that debt back? And, I can't blame them for thinking about number one when it comes to a parent saying, no, I don't want to take that drug, I want to give my kid weed. They're going to support that, and I don't blame them, because if it came to me losing $150,000 a year every year for the rest of my life, I'd be pretty concerned about that too. Just saying.
Not to sound weird, but most doctors too, I mean, they're not taught nutrition, they're not taught preventive medicine, they're not taught health and wellness, they're not taught exercise. And I had a hard time taking advice from bald, fat guys who looked like they were fucking 2 steps from death themselves. And the reality is that they are nothing more, I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to demean the doctors of the world, but pharmaceutical pill jockeys. They learn how to prescribe something for a condition. They don't learn how to fix conditions. And it bugs me the hell out that once you get sick, they keep you sick because they're literally practicing medicine on you. They're really not sure how to get it right, so they just keep giving you stuff till hopefully it works. Because
they even call it that.
They even call it practicing. I think that when it hit me that I had to take that word so seriously, it blew my mind. They're not kidding, people. They are practicing.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's a twisted perspective to look at it from. It's just it's a topsy-turvy world, as Kid Asai says. Things
Dude,
just seem to be
can I
flipped
blow your
upside
mind a little more? So I was a little kid, and my doctor wrote a sentence from my school. It said the ethology of Todd's disease is unknown. And I was a little child. I said, hold on one second. He said the ethology of their disease is unknown. And I had to ask, what does ethology mean? And he says the origin of disease in children. And I went, does that mean that you adults don't know why I'm sick? And he said, that's right. And I went, I'm fucked. Oh my God, what am I going to do? You know about as much about my disease as I do? Oh,
the root of all disease is mitochondria failure. That's what it is. Man.
Explain.
I said the root of all disease is failure of the mitochondria. It's a cell inside the human body that produces our energy and fuels all systems, everything. And when your mitochondria fail you, you begin to fail. One thing that cannabis does is stimulate the production of new healthy mitochondria. Imagine that.
And also, it's also the convincing the mitochondria to almost commit suicide in the cancerous cells, correct?
Oh, no. The whole cell. Mitochondria is just one small cell. Apoptosis is what you're talking about. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. Every cell has the mechanism for apoptosis. Cancer cells usually do not possess that mechanism, especially in leukemia. What leukemia actually is it's not really cancer. Everybody thinks of cancer as this tumorous mass growing inside of the body, but what leukemia is actually more of a form of blood poisoning. It's when your bone marrow produces cells that are immature and not fully developed, and it pumps them out. And what happens is the immature cells do not possess the ability to die. They don't commit apoptosis, if you will. And so they build up and they circulate, and your body stores them in places like your mediastinal cavity here in your chest. And you get this big liquid mucus-like mass of cancer cells, but it's really just your blood cells. Michaela's were T cells. That's your immune system cell. And so she had this overwhelming mass in her chest the size of a basketball of T cells that wouldn't die. And so basically, you don't die from cancer. It was suffocating her. It was causing pleural effusion. It was trapping fluid around her heart, putting restriction on the beating of her heart and how her lungs could expand and function. And so not only was she not having a strong heartbeat, but she was not breathing in of the amount of oxygen she required, thus putting her body into an acidic state, you know. And what happens is these kids just get sick, and then die from suffocation on their organs. And so leukemia is more of a blood poisoning. And when you take THC oil, the THC causes all of those little cells that have built up to start popping and start dying, and it's called tumor lysis. And that's where you get sick and you get the sweats and the fevers and shakes and the exhaustion when you're curing your leukemia, is because all those toxins are now flowing through your body and you have to process them and waste them like every other toxin. And it can be very overwhelming on the system. And so that's one of the reasons that leukemia is so easily treated with cannabis oil, is because it's not a tumor. It's just a bunch of cells built up inside of your body. With normal cancer, if you want to call it normal, with standard everyday cancers that are tumor masses, it really takes more than just THC. That's where you do need some CBD in there to stop the spread and the metastasizing of that cancer. It's like putting up a wall, and then your THC is your mortars launching over the wall and destroying, you know, the other army. You put up a wall to stop the spread, and then you bring in the guns. And it works. It just takes much longer than it does with leukemias. I found in my research that immune system cancers like leukemia, breast cancer, some forms of testicular cancer, those types of cancers are the ones that are so easily treated with cannabis oil. And it's weird because the immune system is what is most affected by the disease process. And so cannabis comes in and basically stimulates your immune system and regulates it and moderates it. And I think that that's part of our disease process is all the constant bombardments from things that cause us to be diseased. Our food, our air, our water, our toothpaste, shampoo, all these things are full of chemicals, and all these things stimulate our immune system to go out of whack. You know, we're constantly fighting all these different things that we shouldn't have to, and that exhausts us and allows cancer to grow. We normally treat our own cancer with our own immune system. We all have it. It's just being fought every day inside of our body by our immune cells. But when you overburden your body with toxins, you can't fight those cancers anymore. Your body takes what's most immediately affecting it, and that's what we're consuming on our own. We're putting this food and stuff into our body, and that's where that disease process really takes off and starts. So not only should you start using cannabis daily, but you should stop drinking soda. You should promote an organic, nutritionally balanced, healthy lifestyle. Stop smoking. Stop taking illicit drugs if you're one of the people that do. Don't consume alcohol regularly. I mean, it's not just, it's a lifestyle change as well. If you don't commit to a lifestyle change, you cannot fully commit to healing yourself. Cannabis won't do it on its own. You still have to be a mature human being. You still have to be reasonable enough to say, hey, this is how I got cancer, or this promoted cancer growth inside of my body, so I need to stop that, take it away, and try something new. It's all about lifestyle changes, and that's where a lot of us fail to really heal ourselves, is we think, oh, cannabis is a cure-all, it's a panacea, but it's not. It's one part of a giant task that you have set before you to change who you are and what you've done. What you've done so far got you to where you are now, and it hasn't worked, so it's time to start something new. So work on your whole body well-being. Take whole plant medicine. Find something that makes you happy. Recreate with something that gets you healthy. That's what my advice is to everybody.
Can I, I like you even more now, honestly, because when I tell people how I got better, nobody wants to hear, oh, you're a vegetarian now? Oh, you exercise? Oh, you started studying martial arts and doing yoga? Oh, you take care of yourself? Oh, you're physically fit? Oh, all this stuff matters? Oh, I'm too busy to be any of that. That is a hassle. I'll just go see my doctor and get sick and see what they treat me with. Because we're all fucked up right now. And I would argue that everyone that was born in the 20th century that literally ate food, hate to break it to you, is malnourished. Because in order for all your food to have long shelf lives and preservation, it's been homogenized, pasteurized, heated up. They've tried to do everything they can to make the corporation safe from any liability of any problems, and in doing so, they have destroyed essential fatty acids. And if you don't know about EFAs, people listening, go read the chapter in Jack Herer's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, or pick up Dr. Udo Erasmus's book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, because he goes into a long explanation about why we've been eating the wrong fats in our diet because they were cheap and easy, and they basically preserved our food and the shelf life of it so that corporations could get the most amount of profits from that box of pasta or whatever it was they were selling you, gallon of milk, what have you. And they've made a lot of this stuff nutritionally deplete, because now that we know we need EFAs in our diet, we're realizing we're not getting them in our diet because they're not in anything but the most freshest foods that haven't been heated or modified. And until people start looking at food as a responsibility and not a luxury, until they start taking care of themselves and not waiting for their doctor to do it, they're always going to get sick. They're always going to be screwed. And I'm so glad that you vocalize that so much. I really do.
I've been a vegetarian for going on 5 years. I eat primarily all organic, whole fruits and vegetables with a very rare shot of processed crap in there. I mean, I'm human. I still enjoy me a Snickers bar every now and again, but I'll tell you what, it's maybe once a month. In the time of my dietary changes, I've noticed the most physiological, beneficial things happen to me over the past 4 years than I ever have in my life. And I've always been athletic. I played football, I played basketball, baseball, I skateboarded, snowboarded, all of that. And I was always in a state of not quite being where I wanted to be. When I stopped consuming meat, and I'm sorry to anybody that listens in who may disagree with this, but when I stopped consuming meat, I felt more human than I ever have before. My digestion picked up, my mental stability was even more clarified than ever before, and I feel like it's because I didn't waste all of my energy and time digesting another sentient being's flesh, if you will. But not only that, I healed my ulcers, my stress is gone, and I think that 90% of that comes from not just not eating meat, but whole lifestyle, vegetable, directed eating. And so that's why I try to tell people that. I tell people eat hemp seeds every single day. Eat them. Eat a handful. Eat coconut oil every single day. There's a reason they give it coconut oil in standard diet regimens for ketogenic diets for seizure patients, because it's the most efficiently used source of fuel for your body. Those are the EFAs he's talking about. Those are the omega-3s. Those are the essential fatty acids that we're all missing. Mix that with hemp and cannabis, coconut oil, hemp and cannabis, and you have basically your whole diet's needs in one shot right there. It's so easy to do. It really is. It promotes a healthy lifestyle and goes right along with the culture of cannabis. I mean, it's all about getting high, getting happy, getting healthy. Eating good is its own high. It's its own happy and its own healthy. You can be a foodie and still eat dank, delicious food. I cook food for people that's completely vegetarian, tacos, nachos, lasagnas, all that stuff. They never even realize there's no meat in it. So it's whatever. What's also awesome about food? You can infuse every single food with hash, all of it. Every last bit of it. It's such a good spice to use. I infuse so many different things. I just have to give a warning to the bystanders who might be trying to eat it, who aren't expecting the high that may be coming from it later. But I'll tell you right now, tacos, if you put some bubble hash in some tacos, you've never tasted anything so good. It enhances the cumin like crazy.
Yeah, dude, I agree 100% with everything all you guys have said. I got turned on to eating hemp in the mid-90s and have also been doing it on the regular and have been a vegetarian for almost 25 years.
Wow.
I never turned back. I can't really jump on the... I grew up in where I am right now. I'm back in my hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I grew up with a very sort of meat and potatoes diet. Lots like a lasagna would have been like mostly meat with a little bit of noodles and some cheese. And also, I just can't even... I mean, I even had a vegan diet for a while, and then we went a little more hardcore when I had a raw food cafe, which was a really incredible... I mean, that food almost got you high. Compared to the stuff that's, yeah, it gets you high. Like you can get high off the food depending on how quick you eat it. So I'm all about when I talk about like the idea of, when I opened my gallery back in 2003, I didn't want it to be like I wanted it to be a high-end place for people who appreciated cannabis to come. And I didn't want to offer them a Coke and a bag of chips. I thought, like, we're better than that. Like, let's do 100% raw, vegan, organic, and macrobiotic. So all of this food was actually grown within, I think, 100 miles of the actual cafe, so that you're not spending a ton of, like, oh, these coconuts are, super raw and vegan. It's like, yeah, but you flew them over on a jet airplane, so it's sort of like defeats the purpose. Which was where I was at when I had the gallery. For whatever reason, it was a fun little thing for a while. I'm just more vegetarian now. Eat the odd piece of fish and feel healthy because of it. Keep active, keep blood flow in the body, like all these things, skateboarding and snowboarding and boating, wakeboarding and wake skating and biking and a gazillion different ways to stay active. And I kind of try to promote that lifestyle through Bubbleman's world, really showing people that there's more than sitting around playing video games or whatever to puffing and enjoying cannabis. So, and that's really kind of how Hash Church was born as well, out of Bubbleman's world. So I should welcome Tony V in the house. Looks like you're in heaven there on the Adirondack chairs. Got the mutie on, eh? I guess I could have unmuted it, brother.
Yeah, bro. How you guys doing?
Doing very good, man. Doing very good. Been a little bit trying here on my end in Winnipeg today. My computer is a little bit of a... Well, it's a little bit of a piece of shit. But hopefully it'll continue and allow Hash Church to thrive. We're only an hour and a half in, and God, it started quick. Brandon came in so early. Well, thank you for coming in so early, Brandon, and sharing your story. And we hope to get you back on Hash Church another time for sure. Beautifully well-spoken, passionate individual. And we will talk again, my friend.
Hey, thanks everybody for having me on. We'll set up another time because Michaela's still sleeping after the long 4th of July night, but she really did want to wake up and say hello. So I'm passing on a hello to everybody from her, and you'll see her again soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good day, bud.
So yeah, Brandon was just sharing his story very early on with us, Tony, of course, his daughter, Brave Michaela. And so Hash Church has been going strong for an hour and a half. It really started like Etienne showed up, who always shows up first. He's like my savior. He shows up, and I don't have to be talking to myself because that's super awkward while I'm trying to send you guys all messages and links to get in. So welcome, Tony and his buddy there.
Yeah, this is Matt. You probably know him on Instagram as Straight Concentrated.
Ah, yes, Mr. Matt Armstrong. Welcome.
Sure. We were listening to the show earlier. It was really good information, and I actually the start of that concept that you're talking about with the right types of fats in combination is how I started with prana. I went from coconut oil and moved a little bit beyond that because coconut oil, believe it or not, it's not hypoallergenic, so it's a good base to start with certain essential fats, and then hemp also adds that 369 and that kind of stuff. But the fractaling off plant fats is also important, kind of like how you clean, how Horatio's cleaning D-limonene and things like that. The same thing happens with certain types of fats, and so you could get higher grades of different types of combination of plant fats, and they come in classifications of C8s and 10s and 11s, 12s, and eventually you get to a point where you can get a plant fat that the body absorbs at a 99% rate that's hypoallergenic and can offer tremendous delivery values on a nutritional level. So I agree and subscribe to everything you guys were saying about the combination of plant fats and nutrition with cannabinoids and or hemp. I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a great synergy that happens.
Tony, have you heard of people using medium chain triglycerides as a substitute? Because I found it an iffy subject. Everyone was like, yeah, well, it's the main ingredient in coconut oil, so it's better. But when I looked it up, it seemed to be missing key acids that come from coconut oil. It seemed to be like a byproduct more than a better product.
Yeah, like I said, you have to do combinations, and so that's what coconut oil is unstable. It's not going to absorb. I look at it as if you're looking at gasoline, coconut oil would be like 87% unleaded. MCT would be like a 91, and then you can get it. Yeah, and then you can get it to a 99%. But coconut is only one type of plant fat, so you could use other types of plants, different types of combinations of that. So you could pull that, and you can refine it, and then you can combine all of them. That's kind of what I'm doing. So there's good things with coconut oil. I have nothing wrong with it. It's a great thing for home, but it will change its state. It's a little unstable. It can separate too.
It's always what I've seen in things like Canacaps that over storage periods, they can look quite manky and unappealing over time. And that's kind of why I've never done capsules. And I'm like, I'll look at that phase when I can study it properly. But I guess it was the coconut oil being so many types of fats at once, and they're all coming in different states.
And coconut oil can be like, if you want to look at it as de-waxed coconut oil, you can do that with those plant fats. Just the same thing you're doing with the limonene. There's a refinement process to anything. So I think that's just as important. But you had asked me some questions about that THCA on Instagram, and so let's put it in perspective, because 99% dry sipped when it's done right, you're going to have THCA. You won't have pure THCA because you've got a little bit of cellulose and things that are in the way. But we honestly, last night, it was kind of 4th of July. A little ridiculous. And we have like a home hydraulic press that we heat up that we've been doing just to kind of demonstrate the difference between a pneumatic and a hydraulic. Because a lot of people don't understand that. If you're using a pneumatic, then you don't get a gradient incremental control over your pressure. And if you're not using digital heat, then you're not being able to dial in heat and pressure in a gradient incremental release or compression. So pneumatic is slammed together. And that's why a lot of people, you get one shot, you slam it together, you blow out your bags or your screens, and you don't get to like gently ease it in. Kind of like when you take a hand press and you're holding it, and like when I take a big chunk of hash, I hold it and I gently start pressing it in, gently more and more, and then I push it on the edge of the corner. Same. By the time you're over, you're just sitting on it. By the time you're over, you're sitting on it. So same concept. So we actually took what we used to do a long time ago. A friend from Cali Labs, he had THCA in its powder form. Is it still sitting there? Yeah, I'll grab it. Okay. So THCA, odorless, colorless, looks very similar to your THCA. It was made by hydrocarbon, and then he had separated, kind of did a weird, like, he started with one product, hydrocarbon extract, and he broke down what he's calling terp juice and THCA and this CBD consistency. I don't know if how pure the CBD is. It's pretty good.
Todd still got it up on the macro. It's so pretty, and it's kind of windy out here. So he's going to put a picture up of it from the other side here in a little bit.
Okay. So it was pure, but we decided to take that with CBD oil with some of the terp juice he had. All of it was hydrocarbon extracted, and put it through some screens, and then hydraulically press it out into this like emulsification of like crazy clear, bubbly, waffly,
stained glass of bubbles.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it's just that was the picture I posted, and that's why it was yellow, because the temperature was at like 400.
400, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 400 at a hydraulic press, so it changed color, slightly yellow. So it's kind of like almost in its activation stage, slightly activating THCA with a little bit of terps in the CBD.
No terp degradation at the 400 degrees, so I mean it was just not enough time at that heat for it to do anything. Even their activated rosin is only sitting around 90% activation. It's good for you though, you need that activation.
However, I still think the flower rosin is insane. We had a 22% yield yesterday.
Yeah.
on the green crack, there was a 23 or 22% yield, weighed at 3.4 going in, and then 2.2 coming out.
And was gone just about as fast as last night. Didn't last very long.
But it was also amazing how the flavor and the scent was still there. That was also because that.
Yeah. Well, it's the closest thing you can get to actually smoking the flower, but taking all of the other side of it out of your lungs, you know?
Here it is right here. Here's a section of it. You can get it in a butter or a shatter. Good God.
It's pretty loud.
I can't even see him on. I don't know if you can even see it. Probably not.
No, when it was right up
looked
close,
like
you
Fred
could see it.
Flintstone smoking a joint.
What's that?
I said it looked like Fred Flintstone smoking a joint.
I went and looked, and the only thing they could see was the hair.
They can't put the two together yet.
It looked like a Rorschach test.
Yeah, so no, the butter consistency, what I was doing before was gentle heat and a little bit of light whipping, or just putting it on parchment and then just putting it on a seedling mat with a book on top of it, kind of like a stimulated pocket cure. But Matt is taking that flower rosin, putting it back through the screen and then pressing it again, and the hydraulic force is kind of churning. Yeah. It's crazy. really good. I was not 100% sold on flower rosin like pretty much everybody else. Everyone's
That's what happened in Washington. Everybody kind of balked at it at first, and everybody's stuck in the BHO world still. And as soon as they tried it, we had to give a lot away for free to get them hooked on it. But once they did, it's good medicine. It's cleaner for you. As soon as you start smoking it consistently, watch your rig. It stays cleaner. So imagine what that's doing to your lungs too.
Yeah. And on this silicone carbide now at about 560 to 610. We got it at 610 right now. It just vapes forever. Really good.
You get 15 hits out of that one last night?
Mm-hmm.
That was extremely tasty. Haven't heard much from Horatio today. What's going on, Horatio? Coughy kiff? Cough, cough, kiff?
He's got a new...
Caught him mid-inhale.
Horatio's got that new. Every time I have a conversation with him, something new comes out. He's got the transdermal bomb now.
That was killing me. I've had it to do for forever and a day. And it's always somebody you come across that has that condition that triggers your, oh my God, that's the sign I have to do it now. I met somebody who had, one of those car accident hands that was just made out of ass cheek skin graft. And it's funny that my father had the same hand. And I knew the struggle with the skin tension over time and how it becomes a debilitating, painful disorder. And I had just given the person their first try of active LHO like a day before, and they started to feel response in the dead part of their shoulder. So as soon as he's like, yeah, but my skin, it's like leather, I can't even close my grip, I'm like, oh, fuck, it's enough is enough. I got to get it right, and I got to get it now. And I'm just working on response. I want it to be a really strong, I don't care if your knee goes fucking numb. I just rather know it works every time and I back off than have that, yeah, it kind of helped response. So I'm looking at probably upping the concentration next.
Well, the transdermal's good. I just haven't. We talked about it, and I've been working on. That for about a year. I just have honestly just been trying to get the sublingual and the capsules going. But I like the transdermal personally. I can't make enough of it for myself and the people that are around me, the different patients. Like right now, it's going towards that patient Jack that you've seen in the news before. The little boy that's changed the law in Colorado. He's one of our patients, and he's getting the 1-to-1-to-1 transdermal, all made from rosin, basically hash rosin, and so and flower rosin. So it's I think it works really, really good. I use it for my my lower back, like if you have herniation in your back, muscle spasm, nerve pain. The microdosing of the sublingual is really key with the transdermal in conjunction with. And anyone that's like, I use the transdermal for anyone that doesn't smoke cannabis. You've got mom, dad, or grandma, and they're like, oh, I would never use cannabis, but I've got arthritis or inflammation or just joint pain, and then they use a little bit of it as a cream, and they see the results, and they don't feel like they got stoned or high or anything like that, but they've got tremendous relief. And it's a natural way to deliver a pharmaceutical-grade type of product for that particular condition. Anything with pain, inflammation, burns, anything with that, it's cannabis rocks. I mean, that's why salves are so good.
Our daughter had an accident about a year ago where she got tragic accident. She got burned pretty bad on her arm and on her leg, and my wife Jody started putting cannabis lotion onto her arm, and not on her leg though, because we wanted to have a little compare and contrast. And on her arm, the scar is at least 50% better than the one on her leg, and it was the worst scar of the two. That's why we chose that one. So, I mean, as we clean it up, I honestly think at her youth, we might be able to reverse most of that damage just using cannabinoids.
Yeah, I used the salve when I had my knee surgery, and everyone looks at my knee. It's not a scar on it.
That would help.
Gone. So, same thing. And I think that's also when I was talking to you about that, where if you look at the endocannabinoid system, you look at different receptors as gateways for controlling and signaling like our traffic system. So if we know sublingual addresses central nervous system the best, capsules is the immune system, and gels and transdermals are activators. So if this is the commander and you have pain or you have a scar and you have that condition, your brain is going to identify with that. And so if you're putting a salve on there, then you're just activating an area and saying to address it faster, and it's regenerative, and that proves it. So when your skin's healing and regenerating those cells, then it proves cannabinoids have regenerative properties.
Oh, for sure. For sure, and I mean, we're right around the corner from big science being done that shows us that. We all know it happens. We just need the hard data, which the law's changing. What you guys are getting ready to do, we're going to have to find it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring my computer around and show you this little hydraulic press. You want to try to press that out?
Ready?
Oh, it wasn't ready?
Oh, it was.
Yeah, you've got to sit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better get up there.
Well, Tony, just say one thing about the difference between topicals and transdermals, because everyone gets excited, and you could say like you make a coconut oil product, and we just talked about all the difference between straight coconut oil versus fats, but how would people identify a transdermal? Because now that's going to be the new buzzword, that everything that's a lotion is a transdermal. But a transdermal is a specific method of bypassing those upper skin layers versus a cream or any other type of normal base, which is just a moisturizer. What do you got to say about that specific echelon of a difference? Because everyone's going to now rip off the term.
Yeah, so there's cosmeceutical, nutraceutical, and pharmaceutical industries, and so you're actually in two completely different industries. A cosmeceutical is a topical that doesn't actually penetrate the skin, and so it can add beautification or rejuvification of the skin or cells, hydration, things like that. So a topical is like a lotion or something that's interacting with that top layer and not actually breaking into the blood. A transdermal actually pushes through and enters into the bloodstream. So it's a way to deliver medicine through the skin in a time release, because they do month patches, they do like week patches, they do hourly patches in other industries. Like if you look into 3M transdermal patch technology, they have transdermal gels. Look at how fentanyl patches are delivered. You put a fentanyl patch on, it's a narcotic patch, and you leave that on for a week or a month, and it delivers. So that's a transdermal. Topical is something that you just rub onto the skin, interacts with the top level, you can wash it off, and it doesn't actually enter the bloodstream. They're two different industries.
Well, that's kind of what I needed to kind of put forth, because when that gel goes on your skin, it's gone. So the cannabis oil that's in it, gone through, where when I normally, anything I've done in the past, you can feel an on top layer that, then you wonder, should I put it under a Band-Aid? Where the transdermals, it's almost like if you don't want it to go halfway in your hand, you have to use a glove in order to apply it.
Yeah, exactly. And also on a topical, so you'll get like a lot of, so if you have like nerve pain, tingling pain, or you have inflammation and swelling of that particular area or joint, a topical could still address those things very well. And so I'm not trying to take away from a topical, because I also have a topical oil that I use for specifically that, and a massage oil that's used specifically for that, for deep muscle massage. A transdermal is something, if you had knee pain, you could put that on your wrist, and it would address your knee pain, because it's getting into your blood. So it's the same thing that's like a sublingual. It's just another delivery method. And generally, the delivery method for that choice would be something that you're trying to time release. So I would use a transdermal in two ways. This would be for injury, like an athletic sports gel, somebody that's post-injury, or somebody that's been in car wrecks that has a chronic condition. It's a great use for that. Or if you develop something that would be time release, that you're trying to take someone off of pharmaceuticals or opiates, that's when you would use transdermal patches and things like that. For everyday use, I think you can get away with it with transdermal gels. You don't need to do patches for daily use.
No, I totally agree, because I started using the back of the ear to apply it to get it in the bloodstream as a general, but then apply it to the acute spots. I've been working on knees, and applying it to the varicose veins as a pathway to get it directly flowing through those nerves that go bad in people's knees. But I did wonder who would need, basically who's going to trigger me to have to look into patches, and can I avoid it? Because in the case of like kids, you know, even persistent rubbing on or having the product is an issue, where a patch is something that allows them to bypass through society unknown.
Well, the gel, so with Jack, with kids, is you can even rub it on your inside of your wrist like a gel, and it'll stay like that. So it's clear and no one sees it. So that's why the same thing that we talked about in the same base that you're using for your transdermal gel, it's really good, and it stays on there. And in my opinion, it's a great incognito way of keeping medicine delivering throughout the day for children.
Well, because I wondered if I put it in a syringe, then they could put, basically losses, I was like, you could put it on the Band-Aid and then put that on the wrist. Like, I know for adults, it's gonna go on as ointment and no one would ever know. But when it came to keeping it applied, I always wondered, when does the level of the patch come in versus just applying more and more and more and more and more. Because people start to act, basically people who are fighting things like fentanyl addiction or being subject to those strong drugs, it seems like it's more about fighting a potential addiction than treating, you know, a hurt hand. Like, is patches for more when I'm trying to get somebody off a drug?
Or time. So, like, if you need to go 8 hours in a day, you know, a patch would go 4 to 6 hours. You know, where a transdermal gel might be like 2 to 4 hours, depending on how much you put on. But I personally like the that particular gel. It's very consistent in the way it delivers. You know, it's very handy for me. Someone that's like, I put it on in the morning, and I actually use it as like a topical. I put it on my lower back, and I put it on my knee, and then I put it sometimes on the side of my temples, or like in my veins right here. Like if I just rub it in right here, and then on the top parts of my hand, just rub it in where the veins are. And so that seems to last. That in a capsule or a few drops, like the combination of those three that I've been using, that seems to be like a very wide spectrum way to cover almost any kind of condition and ailment and a way to target it. So those are really my only three things that I use: is the transdermal gel, the sublingual, and the capsule. Because those three cover it. And topicals. Topicals are good too.
How concentrated, like, I'm wondering, because I read some sports stuff about people who need pain opiates, but they can't get drowsy or they'll kill themselves doing sports, but they've got a wrecked knee. And as soon as it came out, there's the amount of people who wanted to use it on an anti-cannabis person, and I was considering, well, how strong could I make it that they could actually get that more like the capsule experience without the mental, I took cannabis and it's going to get me high. They just have, they don't think it'll get them high, so how concentrated could I go?
So if you keep it inactive, you could go much higher on concentration because they're going to absorb faster. They won't have a psychotropic effect. But if you keep it activated, you would go like a third of what you normally would. So you would be surprised actually how much will help a non-cannabis user. As an example, if you did a 1-to-1-to-1 and for every particular, say, pump from that applicator was, 10 milligrams total, and it was in a transdermal gel, and it was activated, you could probably get away with, a 20 or 30 milligram inactivated and see tremendous maximum results without them feeling a psychotropic effect, but just take a little bit more. And then I also like activated cannabinoids when you're dealing with transdermals instead of inactives. So for me, I always keep everything active and really low dose, like 2, 5, 10 milligrams.
Well, that's the hardest thing to deal with the transdermal is people's character types when it comes to their pain and they get a new product. I think of like, well, I can apply it to my wife and she's going to use it sensibly. And I can think of the times when John B is in a lot of pain and he's going to try to dump it at himself. And I'm like, no, he could get ruined. How do I balance out the two worlds? Because I want the person who's timid to get the maximum experience, but I don't want John B to trip balls because he tries to address like serious nerve stress, like in an emergency. He won't be as responsible with the application. But I'm trying to go as pretty much as strong as it'll stay.
Yeah, I mean, I make in 3 ounces, I'll make 1,000 milligrams in 3 ounces. If that gives you an idea.
Okay, I started at 1.5 in 3 ounces.
Hold on, I want to show you something.
Do it.
So this is a hydraulic, hand hydraulic press. There's been 4 models since this. Now we have customized digital hydraulic pressing. This is a good home unit. So, good idea. This right here is still getting 85 to 96% return on hash.
Now, I noticed last night when you were doing the pressing here that you're doing it in small punches initially before you go with the full pressing. Can you explain why?
Yeah, that's incremental pressing. Just like when you do it at home with your hand iron, you want to slowly release things. And the reason why you want to do that is so you don't blow out your screens. So it allows the heat to slowly absorb, and it keeps a very consistent look among the product. You know, so like if you get spots that are different colors or brown, so now it's going to get jacked. Let's see if we can see this.
Pull out if it's that. Oh, here you go. Certainly come right there.
Yeah. This was only a couple grams.
What you're seeing there, people, is the hash is starting to come out there from where it was pressed from, and there's the actual.
Can you see that?
Tony, it's so funny. So now, did you preheated the plates, or is that just cold pressed? Because I'm going to turn my camera in a second, but I want to hear that answer first.
This one was heated with a torch first.
Okay, because I had some plate blowouts because I don't know if I can reach it, but I keep a hydraulic press nice and close to my desk. I don't know fucking why, but that's just a part of life. And yeah, I would fuck around with intermediary plates that I could heat at a stable temperature and then introduce in between. And I'm up to cast iron now because I've blown out so many stupid. Hey, let me just borrow that pen. I want to see if it heats up well, and then destroy it. But it's just funny we're on the same plane, but I went and ruined it because I've had millions of blowouts because I went fast.
You gotta go with stainless steel, Horatio. It's the only way. Yeah, I have that same exact press, except for mine's not painted that way. It's like ratio.
What did you guys run in there, Tony?
What's up?
What did you run? Was that like a little bit of half, bubble, dry sip?
We ran all full melt 73. I ran Bruce Banner, Cindy, Flo, Grape Stomp, and the glue.
Mm.
Last night, Frenchie Cannoli was over, and he gave us a sample of about a Tootsie Roll style, about 5-gram sample of his 160, and we put that through that press last night. And Frenchie's Cannoli's hash was amazing.
Yeah, so that's like that's just like the home model, and yeah, these plates are thick. The one that's on a commercial size unit that we're using is absolutely ridiculous.
Can you reach the bubble top out there? Stop. There.
Hey, welcome, Michaela.
But I think when you look at a home unit, you probably could do like 30 to 50 gram runs, and that's a pretty good, substantial unit for home.
Welcome back, guys.
Hi, Michaela. Welcome.
I'd like to say hi to Michaela too. It's her video is that, you know, everyone has that trigger video that it's like, no, it could be the answer. I've got to go that way. The video you're able to show your wife versus the cannabis stuff that we believe in. And I remember that juicing video with you and the flowers like it was yesterday. And it's crazy now that my sublinguals and looking at the THCA is all about remembering that juicing video, that there's a whole nother realm that people don't focus on. But Michaela was doing it since, I guess, before me, before I was even taking cannabis seriously. She's the one that made me really consider, what if this is an honest pathway for a living and basically healing human suffering?
Michaela, you're going to have to unmute yourself, honey. I muted you because it was kind of loud there. My apologies.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for coming and showing and saying good morning to us all. What would you like to say?
Well, not very much. But I do have a broken leg, which hurts.
Oh.
So does it
Broken legs are no fun.
Nope.
Although, it's kind of okay when you get a cast and then your friends sign your cast, and they all kind of write different cool things. I didn't mind that part.
Ouch.
Of course, they probably don't make old people casts like that anymore. Now they're probably all like fiberglass and like you can get them wet and they're made of like airbags and I don't know. No? Just a regular old cast?
Get your cast wet.
Oh, okay.
How old are you now, Michaela?
10. Double digits.
Nice. Double digits is great.
Welcome to being a teenager.
I'm not a teenager yet. I'm not even. I'm 10.
Keep telling your dad that.
So what do you have to do? What do you get to do for fun now that you have a broken leg? If you can't really go jump on the trampoline or just kind of relaxing, sitting around?
Yes, I've been playing Rayman Legends on the TV.
Excellent, excellent.
Yep.
Good to keep the mind busy when the when the body sometimes breaks down. I've had many broken bones myself. I've had 16 broken bones, and
That's a lot.
it is. It's more than I need. I don't want to ever have another one. I hope I won't ever have another broken bone. They hurt.
Yes, they do. And I especially did not like it when I had to have the splint on.
Michaela, how did you hurt your leg?
Me, Dad, and Riley were all jumping on the trampoline, and one of us, well, Dad was jumping close to me because we were playing Catch the Spider, and he was jumping too close to me, and he stole my bounce, so I fell on one side of my leg, and when I tried getting up, I fell on the other side, and that's how I broke it.
I see.
It's not an instant drug.
My son's here, Michaela. He says hi, but he's doing it off camera. He's too shy to come on. He's 11.
1 year older than me.
Yep, 1 year older than you. Born in 2003.
And I was born in 2005.
Oh, wow. So he must be a year and a bit older then.
Mm-hmm.
You are almost 12, it's true. In some months. He's trying to get my attention because I think he wants to go swimming in this pool.
That's a big pool.
Yeah, I'm back where I grew up. I'm back at my mom's house right now where I grew up as like a little boy. There's my mom in the top of the screen on the barbecue. Hi, Mom. It's my mom on Hash Church. Oh.
What's she barbecuing?
I'm not sure. What are you barbecuing, Mom?
You done?
Oh, she's just cleaning it up so we can use it. Probably because she cooks meat on there, and we will be cooking probably vegetarian item. Most definitely.
Yum.
Do you eat a vegetarian diet as well, Michaela?
Yes.
My son too. He's never had like chickens or pigs or cows or any of those things. He's never had them before. Maybe one day, I don't know, but for now, just the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Michaela. Could you give us adults a perspective what it was like for you to take medical cannabis and how it's helped you?
Me? I don't really know.
Did you know when the medicine that they were giving you, when it started to help you, did you recognize that it was helping you?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
I don't know.
Did it make you feel better?
Yes.
It made her feel good enough that she started jumping up on trampolines. Little trampoline jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Summertime too, hey, that is pretty much the hardest time to have a cast.
And yesterday was 4th of July.
I know. What did you do for 4th of July? How did you celebrate?
Fireworks.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you know what? You can enjoy fireworks pretty much equally with or without a cast, so you were pretty much on the an equal footing with everyone else there.
Mm-hmm. We had giant
I didn't get to see any fireworks.
Giant sparklers.
Oh yeah, giant sparklers. Those are the best. Did you wave them around and create patterns in the darkness?
Yeah, I also made a face on the sidewalk, but Mom washed him away. He washed away Bob.
How did you make a face?
So you take the fiery sparkling part and you put it on the ground and it leaves a marking from the fire.
Ah, brilliant. Brilliant. Well, that sounds like a good 4th of July.
Yep, it was. It was a
It
pretty
looks
good
as
one.
though... Oh, that's good. We do it up here in Canada. We do the 1st of July.
Cool.
I'm not too sure. We just have these different days. So, 1st of July in Canada, 4th of July in America.
Yep.
Good fun.
So, Michaela, you're just a normal girl, aren't you?
Not really.
Ha!
You sound like a normal girl. It sounds like you're enjoying summer, bouncing on trampolines, now recovering.
Yep.
It must be nice not to be so sick anymore, yes?
Yep.
You're a strong, brave woman. Many people look to you and thank you very much for your strength and your parents' strength for showing many people the way that, you know, medical cannabis does help. So thank you for being a brave woman.
Everybody gonna go.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming in.
Uh-huh. Bye.
I could be wrong, but I think Todd and Tony are at the same place.
You would be correct. We all hung out last night with Rob, and like I said, Rob Clark's there. Frenchie Cannoli came over. We made rosin last night, all night, basically trying different things from extracting the THCA, adding CBD, then pressing that together. It was a lot of experimentation and playing. Hey, Brandon, thank you a lot for allowing Michaela on. That was really awesome. She is so sweet.
She wanted to come on and say hello to y'all.
Well, we sure appreciate it. Absolutely. I felt like I was there yesterday, Etienne. I watched your Periscope and I was like, damn, there must be some people in that crowd for them just to be showing feet.
Yeah, I was trying to be respectful when you're running with that many masters. You know, like, hey, I'm posting live on the internet. I know we're all just socializing, so here, here's my camera. I want to get all up in your face and everything. So.
My favorite was always was when people would try to take SKunkman Sam's photograph. That was always my favorite.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's a huge no-no. Don't do that.
And he probably can be pretty gruff in response.
Yeah, I mean, he'll just like leave or ask you to delete it or whatever. Just like doesn't like, it's respectful. You learn it when you travel, unless you're really a specific type of photographer where you are shooting people. Well, then you do that in a way where, I guess they don't know, because people don't like just having cameras put in their face and having their picture taken. Hey, we've been talking about rosin all day, and who shows up? It's Scialdone.
I'm on.
Howdy, Scialdone. Good to see you.
It's going great, man. We were just watching these guys press up some rosin on I guess it was a hydraulic press.
Very nice.
Yeah, it looks like they're away prepping it right now, or they're heating it, getting all ready for the next round.
This tech's evolving very fast.
We're very excited to see it. I mean, myself, I know that Nick over at Harborside's seeing it. We're seeing it even here in Berkeley. We're seeing rosin coming to market. So the patients are already benefiting from it coming directly to them. So this July 4th in the Bay Area, people can actually buy, rosin direct from their dispensary. So I have nothing but thank every single one of you guys for spreading the word, spreading the knowledge, and not only that people have got excited enough that, they're actually making it, getting to market. And like last night, it was fun with Rob Clark, and here we are passing all these different varieties, and for him to, we're all wondering, when does this technology actually come from? Because it's so ancient, it's just heat and pressure, and we've been using all these crazy chemicals to separate everything, and all we use is water, heat, pressure. Ta-da!
Magic.
Yeah. Water being the key ingredient. Once again, this really is a steam to water extraction. It's the steam, it's the water that is bringing out those oils, creating those patterns around the buds and around the hash. It is key.
Well, we took some freeze-dried bubble and pressed it, and it still works. I mean, I don't know if that still has water in it or not, but it went through a freeze-dry.
If you notice, the rosin probably sizzled.
What's that?
The rosin probably sizzled, no?
When I was pressing it out, it actually, some of it, depending on what it was, some of the freeze-dried stuff came out straight butter. You know, I put the temp really low, and it just, you know, once you open it up, it's butter already, right?
So what do you think that is, Fletcher? I mean, if it's supposed to be bone dry, how can it rapidly accumulate so much water to create the buttering process that, you know, it's like, how could dry butter off the shelf be, like if you use bubble off the shelf, does it happen that fast?
I don't think buttering is necessarily strictly resulted from or related to just H2O, like water. I think it could also be due to water-soluble terpenes, extremely volatile terpenes, all that stuff, and the fact that they're hygroscopic and pulling in H2O from the environment around you.
Exactly.
Higher concentration of those, you're going to get more water faster. And like, so yesterday, I trimmed up some OGKB and some a lemon G cross that we have, and the trim was still really, really moist. But I took that, put it in the deep freezer with my Bubbleman tumbler, and I got a bunch of keef that was like, you know, pretty melty on its own, but way too sticky to even have any chance of processing it dry without being in a walk-in or something like that. So take that and just rosin it, and I mean, here's some of what I made yesterday. And I mean, it is so sappy, it won't really, you know, it just moves wherever it goes, you know. And
the question, like, is the freeze-dried stuff becoming like more of an environmental vacuum during the heat process than regular partial? Yeah.
So what I think is that the freeze drying process, depending on how you do it, how you insulate the bubble, how long you run it, what the moisture content of the bubble before you put it inward, is all going to have an impact on how much of your water-soluble terpenes are also going to get cooked off, or not even necessarily only water-solubles, but volatiles, period, and particularly hygroscopic ones, being pulled off during the vacuum process, and also the heat-dry process that's part of the freeze-drying, and causing the actual ice crystals to sublimate. So,
well, I think that it has a lot to do with, you know, when you're freeze drying something, you know, you're not splitting those resin heads open, right? So you've got two things going on there. You've got water that's surrounding the resin, and then you have the resin. And when you freeze dry, you freeze that water that's on the outside, and that sublimates away with the vacuum. And at the same time, the resin head on the outside of it is being cured. And so it's becoming a sealed package that has those water-soluble terpenes and alcohol-soluble terpenes in it.
Package.
Well,
You know?
it is in the sense
because when I look at it under a microscope and it's done, it looks like if you over freeze dry it, it looks like a prune or like a raisin. It's actually looks deflated and looks like it's been ruptured in one point and has actually expelled some of the volatiles. That's what it looks like under a microscope. Now, I don't know, but it looks like a prune. It's all wrinkled up, and that's what happens if you have too much. It gets too much heat or from the heating elements, because you didn't insulate it, or because a vacuum process or just being in vacuum period degrades things faster than it would in other environments because of it's under vacuum. So that all of that can play a role and factor into those changes from what would be a raw cannabis head at whatever point you extracted it and what it looks like once it's been cured via whatever method you're using, whether it's a microplane and drying it in a cold room or freeze dry or whatever it is.
So could it be like, because it's being freeze dried in position, it's literally buttering inside of itself, but it stays separated, and then when you rosin it, all you're doing is homogenizing basically powdered butter.
That's exactly what, and so what we're also seeing is, like, with the freeze-dried stuff, if you insulate it really well, you can get like a more traditional texture where it's hasn't been pruned out yet, I guess, right? Or it hasn't raisined yet. And that just, that'll grease up in your jar and look like but it'll butter out just like greased up hash will. And I mean, that's one of the funniest things. I mean, if you have really, really high quality hash and it tastes really good, it's gonna butter out no matter how good you are at drying it. It's gonna happen eventually. If it came from fresh material. If it's old, dried material, or not old, but just dried or well cured material, then it should be a lot more, I guess, stable. Or
would you say that's the water, the moisture that's causing most of that, the buttering and the?
I think it's water soluble and volatile terpenes, not necessarily H2O itself. Okay. And then the H2O being pulled in from your atmosphere around you because of the hygroscopic nature of some terpenes. And I would assume that a lot of the terpenes that are really volatile are most likely water soluble because they boil off so easily at a room temperature. They don't need really another solvent to make them aromatic.
Makes sense.
Also, when you're hitting temperatures over 120 and 140, you're turning some of those terpenes, they actually start turning into a solvent. So now it becomes this implosion of science within itself.
Right. And another thing, too, is, I mean, just the fact that, any terpenes that you can smell at room temperature, like what you're doing right now, those are boiling off, and that's because they're so volatile that they'll just burn off at 70 degrees. I mean, to keep some of these, terpenes won't freeze at 32 degrees. You'll probably have to go way, way below. I mean, there's some concentrates we've made in the past that don't have butane in them, and even some really, really sappy rosin that you put it in the freezer and it still doesn't fully harden up and turn to a shatter. And I think that's just a high concentration of volatile terpenes of either oil or water soluble, but namely just volatiles that make things sappy. It changes the composition of your concentrate.
This is sappy shit that Darrin and I made on that video, turning, I don't know, we took like, can't remember if we did 30 grams. Yeah, we did 30 grams and got just over 14 grams. So it was about a 50% return. This stuff's never buttered out. I don't keep it in the freezer. I just keep it out. It's still like pull and snap, really sappy, like stupid sappy. Yeah. I really have to cut it to pull it out. But
that's how this stuff is.
Yeah, different.
I think different environments also, like Canada versus Washington or California or Colorado or Louisiana, let's say. Those different humidity contents of what's in the air is totally reacting with the type of hash. So in like Colorado, I'm the same way. I'm like, yeah, I just leave it out, nothing ever butters. It's perfect all the time. And then you go to like, every time we've gone to Jamaica, that's a real good test. If you think your hash is stable, put it in your pocket, go to Jamaica, pull it out on the table, and if it's still super stable, then you'll know. But I think once you hit like different ranges, so 25% humidity does something to that hash left out, 50% humidity, 80% humidity. As you go up those incremental rates, it all has a different
Definitely.
Well, and I think it's what type of hash and what the volatility of those terpenes in that environment at all those variables that you said how that reacts. It's not, it's every concentrate is going to be different in those different environmental things, because if you add one terpene that was not present in this other, that's extremely hygroscopic, then you might, be right into butter territory really quickly.
Well, I also think the cryogenic, like the freezer, is super important. So if you think of things with oxygen starts breaking down, and that's what you've got color in your hash and your extract and things like that. So like an older hash that's been exposed to a lot of oxygen and breakdown of that, you'll see that. But if you take fresh frozen material and you're able to capture those terpenes, or you're able to capture a hash into like running it through bubble bags, putting it in a patty 73 through 120 and either creating it, sifting it or not, and keeping it a patty and taking it -50 to -80, you take all the water out, then you press that. And what you're essentially doing is, like you said earlier, you're able to press the grapes, not the raisins. So when people ask me, hey, do you want to, run this fresh cured or dried bud material for terpenes, it's like, yeah, we could, but like the yield isn't going to be there, and the entire plant essence isn't going to be there because you've already lost 50% of what was there. And so what makes those terpenes, in my opinion, volatile, so we have monoterpenes, spiritual terpenes, what makes them volatile is how they're extracted and the temperature and pressure in which they're extracted in. So you could change limonene to pinene with temperature. So a lot of people don't understand that these terpenes, they actually change into other terpenes with temperature. So the idea of pressure and temperature, that's certainly going to do it. So if you're at 180 and you have a certain PSI and you're pressing out beta-caryophyllene and limonene and all these different terpenes, there's specific ranges in which those terpenes convert into other things. Now that chart is still unexplored. There's hundreds of terpenes that we haven't even explored in that conversion area. So, and again, like you said, the interaction between hydrophilic and hydrophobic and exposure to oxygen changes everything. So I'm a big fan of what you were talking about and doing, and we do the same thing with dry freezing hash, and if you could do it in a nitrogen environment, not in an oxygen environment, then you're really preserving everything perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, just to go off of what you were saying with the putting stuff in the freezer. So when Soil Grown first started posting about the rosin and all that, I had some like hash that was 30% melty or something like that. That had basically left in the freezer in the pressing screen for like, I don't know, a month or two, because I just was like over drying it. I knew I wasn't going to end up smoking it anyways. I was like, fuck, I'll save this for someone for edibles or something. And so I took that out of the freezer, and it smelled awesome. And I pressed that out, and that'd been in the freezer for 2 or 3 months, just exposed to the freezer environment completely. And that stuff pressed out great. And I mean, when I touched it, it felt really dry. Like you're saying, I don't even necessarily think that a freeze drying, you don't necessarily need to go through a whole freeze drying process to accomplish essentially the same net goal, which is what you're posting right there, and it's the static qualities. That's the win.
Well, yeah, I mean, water is going to sublimate at frozen temperatures over time. It's going to happen, right? You're going to have some temperature shift that's going to happen, and over time, it's just going to sublimate out. You look at like freezer burn, basically. That's the water coming out of whatever you put into the freezer, and so, yeah, that's a beautiful chunk there, Tony.
Right, so this is going to lungs. This is going to Matt right now. So we had about a 98% return. Pretty close. This is 2 grams of hash through the hydraulic press. It's like super clear.
I want to chime in. You were talking about we were chiming in on the auto butter and all that earlier. One thing about this is 100%. This has nothing to do with the person who's pressing it. This shows the grower skills. We've had growers that we've processed for
our White Russian that stays stable, and it's been stable for 3 months in open air. It's not degrading. It's not auto buttering. It's been in a backpack at 90 degrees by accident, and it pulls right out. It's 100% correlated to water content and moisture content within the terpenes.
We also just saw that last night.
Oh man, yeah.
Was because the guy that had flowers here, the green crack, they were using those little humidity packs.
Yep.
And so that was the bud was cured for a long time, but there was moisture in it.
But not to the core. Not to the core. So we got a really great extract, but the moisture content in it was excessive. And like you were talking earlier, when you have such a, those micro macro terpenes that you're dealing with at 30 below, there's still a liquid base. We ran into those very heavily yesterday with that green crack.
But it was interesting. I mean, I liked it because it preserved a lot. I got a lot of flavor.
Oh yeah.
Just extremely hard to work with because it was so viscous.
Impossible.
Yeah. I don't see that as a bad thing at all. Something wanting to butter change over, to me that says that it has an extremely high concentration of terpenes. Like, isn't that what we're going for in the first place? Exactly. So what? There's a little water that gets attracted to it due to the nature of the concentrate. I mean, just the fact that you have a concentrate that's so high in terpenes that it's changing the basically
composition of the shatter. It's an organic piece of living mixture that's separating, just like my chai is separating.
Exactly.
And it's sinking, and this would represent cannabinoids, and the water that's floating on top would represent terpenes. And when this happens in a piece of amber shatter, what you really see isn't necessarily, like they used to say, it's degassing or it's butane soup, when in reality we see it happening with stuff that is in the water community, is in the rosin community, because really it is a separation of terpenes and cannabinoids that's happening organically. When people say, oh, this shatter is stable, it's really just a matter of time and temperature of what they're talking about when they say stable, because the cannabinoids and the terpenes are going to want to separate. There's nothing we can do about it. And can I ask Rob?
Yes.
So let's ask Rob about it, actually. When you wrote hashish, was terpenes a big part of the conversation in a traditional hash?
No, not at the time I started writing it. But when you look back through some of the forensic analyses of hashish that came in, they weren't all about the cannabinoids. Some did hint at what terpene fractions were there. And of course, the cannabis that hashish was made from, the cannabis flowers, there had been analyses showing that there were terpenes in them. So we knew. And that's why I put the appendix in the back, listing all the terpenes that at the time, in 1998, that you could find listings for that have been found in cannabis, and then a bit about their boiling points and some things about them, but nothing about their effects, things like that. Just more in terms of how they affected a piece of hashish, besides the stickiness of THC, or the THC acid, which isn't sticky at all. What was making hashish stick together? I was more into the physical side of the terpenes.
The cohesion factor.
Yeah.
Do you think that now that this is a new phenomenon? Because, one could almost argue that most of the hashish from yesterday has been really out of damaged cannabis. Cannabis that when it was harvested in fields didn't have the opportunity to be hand selected or manicured or treated as gingerly. Oh, that's so nice. Treated as gingerly as the cannabis that we now use and we blast with, and we make, things like this. Which is this magic piece of rosin that just appeared.
Magically appeared.
That looks so familiar.
It's rather similar to one that seemed to flash by earlier on the church.
I pressed one earlier that almost did look just like that. Good work. Good work. That looks nice.
Funny, yeah, we did good with that. Should we try it?
I would highly recommend it. No,
what flavor?
So is this fragrant medicine, as you called it, is this a new phenomenon? I mean, are we really just now starting to be able to experience a wider breadth of cannabinoids with their terpenes intact? Because most of the cannabis before was dried in the sunlight or dried in open-air barns. Absolutely. Or dried in such ways that the terpenes were an afterthought at best.
Absolutely. People dried their cannabis as fast as they could dry it. You know, and they treated it in a bulk situation. Almost every culture that makes hashish, with the exception of places like Afghanistan in certain circumstances, just ground up all the weed and then tried to get the resin out of that. Other cultures tried to get the resin out as quickly as possible and leave behind as much plant material as possible. Those are high-grade producers in Afghanistan, places like that. But Morocco, Lebanon, most of these places, it's all bulk. They just ground everything up and then tried to sieve out the resin glands rather than selectively trying to get rid of the resin glands and leave behind the plant. Water hash. It's all the modern way of doing it.
Matt, this is amazing. This snaps like shatter breaks almost.
It does. It's cooling about 85 degrees right now, sitting out here.
Wow. So I've got another question. Is it a possibility that just the presence of or a higher concentration of some of the minor cannabinoids that may or may not be present in all kinds of different strains be a cause for buttering as well? Or, you know, it could not just be terpenes only, but also cannabinoid, you know, as some minor cannabinoid that may or may not be in some strains. So I don't know.
100% agree. When we were pressing the green crack yesterday, that was probably, I've pressed a lot now, and that was probably the best material I've got to run, hands down. The yields were through the roof.
Oh, that was like 20-something.
High upper 20s, almost 30%. Yeah. We couldn't get it all off. There was no way to tell because it was just so terpy. It was soaking into parchment paper.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to switch to PTFE just to try and keep it from going in there. But, you know, testing we've done at even higher temperatures, we're getting 10s and 12s in our terpene counts. So that's nothing added in. So, I mean,
what temp are you pressing?
What was that?
What temp are you pressing at for the flower?
For flower, it really depends. We've gone down to 240 yesterday on that. And I think lower is very, very possible once you start playing with extreme pressures. We're pretty hard now, but I want to go.
Nice, very nice.
So Rob, are all cannabinoids oil or water soluble? Do we know? I don't know.
Phytocannabinoids are not water soluble. That's what I've done.
Well, inactive, are they oils or crystal? I mean, that's the first question.
Right. Sure.
My 2 cents from the perspective of a hash maker is, in regards to the buttering effect, is that I have a feeling water is definitely potentially the culprit. I don't know why I always go back to that, but one of the reasons is that when you make dry sift and when you use particularly old material where, you know, the glands have sort of raisined out, like what Fletch was talking about earlier, they really they get so dry they turn into little raisins almost. I've made dry sift with material that is so old and long dried and pulled out, you know, hash that everyone would beg me to sell them. Like it's like the stuff I brought to the cup last year, the Sweet Skunk dry sift. I left it out on the table for all 10 or 11 days that we were there. It never had any butter.
I was there. I was a witness of it the entire time we stayed there in Amsterdam, where it's literally fogging in your room of moisture. Like you wake up with moisture in your skin and your bones. You left the lid off for 10 days in that type of condition, and it stayed like.
Right, but my question is, could that be the presence or not the presence of certain terpenes that allow it to be stable like that? I mean, because it is cured, those have already boiled off. So, you know.
I mean, it's possible. I always have, you know, just to put it into language, I theorized that there were water-soluble and alcohol-soluble terpenes for the reason that some were left in the hash and some were washed away in the water. And I also theorized that strains that we would call the dank, you know, like the the Emerald at Triangle Funk, or the Old Blueberry, or the Renee. These strains had this incredible funk to them, and I found when I washed them with water that they maintained about 98% of that profile, of that terpene smell. So I surmised that it was an alcohol-soluble terpene content was through the roof. Like if it was 10 or 12% terpenes in this, maybe 10% of them were alcohol-soluble, because the water had a very little flavor at the end, and the hash itself smelled like the herb, like a bag of the herb. So I don't know. I think that there's going to be a little bit more chemistry involved to truly know, but I love that more and more people are focused on the question.
I got something to say here. Are they hearing me? Okay. If you look at the terpenes. Terpenes are of limited solubility in water, and almost all of them are soluble in hydrocarbons of various sorts. But the point is they are of limited solubility in water. So a little bit of any of them can come out in the wash water. What tends to come out in the wash water from making hashish is the monoterpenes, and that's largely because a lot of these are monoterpene alcohols. They're terpenoid alcohols. And the alcohol group makes them water soluble. It also does something that, if you ever used Everclear, okay, when you buy it, it's 180 proof or whatever, 185 proof, whatever it is. But as soon as you open it, it takes on water. This happens with anhydrous alcohol in labs even more. Anhydrous, without water alcohol. So as soon as you open alcohols of any kind, including alcohol terpenoids, they absorb water. They're hydrophilic. And I think part of what you're seeing with the terpenes, depending on which variety you're looking at and how you prepare it, is how much water gets absorbed as it's happening. You also have to remember that almost everything you're working with is THC acid, which is water soluble, and therefore I assume also absorbs water, but I don't know how hydrophilic it is. But it's not like THC, which is hydrophobic and is not going to absorb water. So you've got differences there too in how much water can get into things. And as we're discovering a little bit with this pressing, tiny bit of water is kind of cool because it solubilizes a few of those terpenes and steam distills them a tiny bit on a micro level, and it's maybe pushing out more terpenes because of that too. The cake that's left is flexible, okay? Even after this high yield stuff, it's flexible. There's resin in there, obviously, or THC. It's got liquid in it. But this is from last night, and it's flexible as a piece of dog jerky. But it's still got stuff in it. You know, it's not 100% out of there. It's interesting. Doesn't smell like much though. Almost all the terpenes are gone, even though there's obviously goop still in there. So
yeah,
Rob,
yeah.
Rob, do you think there was a natural gravitation toward hand-rolled and temple balls? I kind of wish Frenchie were around because, of course, you don't lose anything through the water through the actual, you know, the hand-rubbing techniques or the hand-rolling techniques. And, of course, people have spoken highly of the differential of that high from that hand rub through the centuries, because I would think then most of your terpenes and everything, that was really the only form of hash where they were actually retained. I know, of course, there was also the contaminants in the water from the plant matter, etc., but wouldn't that have been the only carrier at the time that would have maintained the terpenes without the destruction?
No, exactly the opposite, I think, Etienne. When you fresh rosin glands, as Tony will tell you, are really soft. That's why he freezes them solid before he works with them. And when you make hand-rubbed hashish, you break all the glands. I mean, you can go rub some with rubber gloves from indoor plants to prove it to yourself, and turn the rubber gloves inside out and flake the stuff off and get a lens and look at it, and they're broken up. And that allows them to start oxidizing almost immediately. So in addition to all the wet plant juice and pieces of leaf you got in there, causing it to spoil and have other problems, you also have broken all the glands. So hand-rubbed hashish never did keep very long. And that's largely why everything coming out of Nepal these days is recon, because they take stuff that's dried out and cracked, and they take 100 kilos and they told the story before. They take out the best 20 or whatever, and they make oil out of the other 80, and they mix it together, and that's what modern napalm is. But it's the only way to really make it so it lasts and keeps. There are also freaks in napalm that sieve wonderful hash, but I'm talking about commercially what goes on. That's the end there. But no, the dry sieving is what preserved terpenes, and a lot of the finest Afghan hash had been stored for years and years. So in the 70s, very early 70s, when it came in, it was already cellared and aged, and it had lost terpenes because of that. But that's the way they like to smoke it. So they didn't have to wait. You know, there's nobody making them wait. So this,
have you seen that?
they liked it that way. They were smokers. You know, there's a difference there. Everybody's vaporizing. These new products are really fascinating. You get all these varietal flavors. But what guys historically are doing, and what Frenchie does, is cure weed, press things, do things to age them. And what he talks about is preserving terpenes, but he's not preserving terpenes like you guys are. He's just preserving terpenes as best he can within the model of doing it the traditional way to make a smoker's product. And that's a real difference in our ages and our cultures. People who traveled a lot reflecting traditional culture, and you guys making up new things. We're out. It's a good mix. But that's why you get the two different schools of thought. Really.
Well, that's what you saw last night with Cali Labs and I playing around getting a little extreme. That's exactly what you're talking about. Is we thought that what we did was the most smoker-friendly way of consuming those phytocannabinoids. Yeah. And I think everybody who tried it last night would agree it was successful. Successful.
Yeah. It's just a completely different thing. I mean, when you smoke really a lot of different kinds of weed, it's hard to go to sleep at night. You know, when you smoke a whole bunch of different weeds pressed out, and you get even higher, it's even harder to go to sleep at night. So, whatever's missing. Okay, you guys pick varieties that are not sleepy varieties, because all we do is sit around and talk, try to invent stuff. You know, it's not like blue collar guys trying to go to sleep or medical people trying to get over their pain. I mean, we're trying to get high, so that's a different thing. But it works really well that way. It's like smoking really good weed, but without the weed and without any steps in between that took away anything you like. So, yeah, the big thing to me is
they wake you back up. I know I've heard Horatio talk about it numerous times, but it's recharging. The modulation, that just the terpene load we put into that last night is exactly right. It just kept you going. It was another plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do straight CBD to come down.
Yeah. Go ahead, Etienne.
I said I had to do straight CBD when I got home just to come down because I was way too high and modulated.
Yeah.
There's a whole market in come-down drugs now.
All right, guys, I got to check out. I'm on my way to a barbecue, so enjoy the rest of church and have a great Sunday.
All right. Cheers, bro.
See everybody next week at Chalice.
Your CBD. Got that Moxie CBD.
Yeah, Moxie's in our. We have them at BPG now, and yeah, we were so high from just all the different types of modulations. They were literally playing with all these different things in the press. And I literally tried about 20 different things last night, and I wanted to get to bed so I could get up for Hash Church. So,
and you were up for Hash Church, let me tell you.
Live and like a bushy-tailed rabbit.
For me, it was really easy this particular Sunday because I didn't have to start Hash Church till, geez, what was it like? 9 o'clock here. Oh no, yeah.
Manitoba, right?
Yeah, I'm in Manitoba right now. So 9 a.m. here was actually 7 a.m. Or 9 a.m. in Vancouver, sorry, it was 11 a.m. here. So I got a couple of extra hours to take care of business.
I was ready for Hash Church yesterday.
Yeah, Aaron's been ready for like 31 hours.
Would you turn in yesterday, Aaron, by chance?
I thought it was Sunday.
He's like, "What's up, homie?"
I hit a Bubbleman. I'm like, "What's up with the link, bro?" He's like, "It's Saturday." I'm like, "Oh."
You still hitting that Cuban sift or what?
Dude, I got all sorts of sifts.
I got all sorts of sifts.
I got all sorts of sifts and
You got any of that? You got any of that Taylor sift?
Taylor Swift. No Taylor Swift.
There's a dude in chat with that name. It always makes me laugh.
Well.
Hey Tony, what are y'all pressing now?
I'm not quite in it. My fingers
say?
are.
What are y'all pressing now?
Oh, this is the that 2 grams that we have the slab here is Bruce Banner, Gorilla Glue, Flow, Cindy 99, Great Stomper.
You poor saps with very little variety. I feel terrible for you.
Take that, Rob.
Quite fine, thank you.
Variety is in fact the spice of life.
Oh, no, your camera's over there now.
Indeed, variety is the spice of life.
That's a well-hung dab, sir. And what flavor is this particular varietal?
That's the Banner, Glue, Cindy 99, Flow, Great Stomper.
Say that 3 times when you're high.
Yeah, and if you had to order it like through like a delivery service or something,
damn. Yeah, I'll take 3 grams of the.
Not happened. Yeah.
It's a mouthful for certain.
The Bubbleman Whamma. It is. Those bags, they work perfect, those screens.
Yep. This was through a bubble bag.
You know, we've actually tried every single screen company out there, and man, screens are the only ones that don't blow out.
You want me to tell you why?
Because they're amazing.
No, it's super simple. Because they are the highest quality screens you can buy in Switzerland or Germany for like pharmaceutical grade drug separation. Nobody pays the fucking money I pay for these screens because you can pay so much less to get what looks like the same product, but it is not the same product. It's a cheaper version.
The proof is in the rosin.
Not far enough away.
Oh, that's me. Gosh. Okay, hold on. Okay.
All I know is we've even tried some metal bags, and metal bags compare, your amazing bags don't. So I'm not trying to blow you on your bags. They're well known already, but I would suggest anybody pressing, don't mess around with the others. We already have. Don't waste your time. Get serious and get the right stuff.
Well, it's just as simple as buying the best quality screen, and nobody wants to buy it because you can't buy it in meters or sections. They sell it by the bolt, and it's about 18,000 to 23,000 euros per bolt. People aren't interested in that type of investment to get some rosin screens.
Except you, and thank you.
Yes, I get to buy eight different bolts each time because I have an 8-bag kit.
So does that mean when the super industrial rosin press, you'll be able to provide an 8-foot wide envelope and we'll wrap like a whole trailer load of weed? That's what I'm looking for. Like, yeah, it'll be on those massive.
I see like industrial sheets of parchment paper being pulled out and stopped.
Oh, I can't wait for the day.
I see a giant rosin machine with
your brain, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's true. Not to mention, you know, I do have a strange feeling that pressing will lead us to something different. And the reason I think that is because from the first day after I showed Breeder Steve the concept of rosin and the extraction, he had sent me a bunch of different machines, and he has since posted some of them on Instagram, and some of those oil extruders, the seed extruders that actually twist, they have these sort of like corkscrews that twist through these areas, and they they just extrude all the non-oil material and push out the oil out the other way. Man, those things, it would be quite something to see like 5 gallons of rosin pour out of one of those things once the dial got cracked.
When I first started dreaming about seeing this happen, first thing I looked at was a flaxseed press. I mean, YouTube it. That's what I would like to see happen, and that's eventually where it will go. Like you were talking, the corkscrew press. We've already figured out that it's not about direct pressure. It's about gradient and then direct point pressure. You know, you still have to be able to exert an enormous amount of force, but you got to gradiate it in. You got to heat it up and let it do what it needs to do. And you know, just a hint, the machines that we're going to be finalizing on the last model of this, it will be that. It'll be an electric-driven brushless corkscrew press. That way, it's a static room ready. You can throw this in a clean room and in a 502 lab in the Washington world or wherever, and it's going to pass your third-party inspection. This is lab-grade stuff we're going to be putting out. So, you're right.
I got a question. So, you know, essentially, if what we're doing with the rosin is like a high temperature, or not high temperature, but low temperature, high pressure, quick steam distillation, why do we necessarily, couldn't you just have like a chamber with a lot of pressure and like steam pressure and just blast through it with it? I'm just posing the question that, you know, if it's a steam distillation, wouldn't there be alternative methods of steam distillation as well?
I think the idea of connecting it to something that is agricultural is the reason I think that also a flaxseed or a canola oil seed extruder, those things can work in the field. Those things can produce such an incredible amount of this oil in such a short time that it's really more of an agricultural tool than it is like it's just on a different level. And I just don't think the pressing, and I could be wrong, I just don't think it will be the future of rosin. Not when
I agree. We were talking yesterday about different jet sizes. Just talking about creating pressure and speed of what you're throwing at it. Yeah, imagine jetting down steam faster and faster to where we're at the same PSI as our pumps are pushing right now, and getting it 100% just with jetted steam. But it's still at low temperature because it's being jetted lower and lower and lower. It's gaining its own thermal climb as it goes.
Are you getting that, Horatio?
I'm sorry, I'm Googling an idea. I'm like, oh, I know how to fix that. I just have to, and you caught me half Googling.
Yeah.
I can see your brain working, dude.
But yeah, like a quick pass pressurized steam distillation, right, or something like that. Is that basically what we're talking about?
I think once we all put our brains together, I think that's pretty close to exactly what we're talking about, but also incorporating pretty much what the flaxseed press is, because you still want to be able to wring out that last bit, right? So you're going to have to incorporate the two together.
There's going to be advantages and drawbacks and things, because I know, like, I have an oilseed press, the one they sell in Africa all around the world, the Petiba press. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, it can do keef, but it could never do bud. It doesn't have enough oil to cellulose ratio to not get backed up and blow up. And if you use more heat to do that, you kind of ruin the rosin, but you could make a shit ton of industrial grade oil. So it might be a matter of how you get pure heads to get the process to be perfect and more recreational, because there's a shit ton of ways I can make oil out of weed, but they're going to produce shitty oil and probably be unsanitary on their way out of the agricultural device.
I like the sesame seed oil hydraulic press. How sesame seed oil is done. It's a really cool way to also do hemp seeds. Yeah.
And that's where, people have been talking about the fresh frozen rosin, and I think Johnny's onto something in one aspect, because it does take a certain amount of moisture to make any of these presses work under any amount. And we all talk about full plant extract and having everything inside of that, but we're not going to get a better chance than throwing a full plant into that. We've got the technology. I mean, got a mastermind reloading his pen right there who could probably take any substance we get and refine it perfectly. So yeah, let's develop the best way to do that organically within its own components, its own compounds.
Yeah, when you rosin stuff that's been dry for 5 or 7 days and still has a bit of that moisture in there, does great.
That makes good sense.
Just remember, what about that chlorophyll downside? Because the fresh frozen rosin, it seems to be an up and down because some people harvest a drier plant and some people harvest a wet plant that's fully saturated. How would you stabilize that up and down? So I've seen that fresh frozen rosin come out perfect, and I've also seen it come out mush green. So is that just about perfecting the bubble process and processing wet material rather than drying it?
5 days.
Wash is going to be a big part of it, but also temperatures of extraction. I mean, if you can inject nitrogen into your plates when you're pressing, you can flash freeze it the second you're done. And you know what that's going to happen if you can go to 40 below the minute you change from your high temperature. There's going to be quite a reaction that's on there that's going to do a lot of pulling. But as far as cleaning out that chlorophyll, you know, that's where masterminds like you come into the picture. You know, your scientists who do amazing things and fix sometimes our boo-boos, or very often our boo-boos, probably. And but you make better medicine out of it. That's what Tony's prawn is there for. It absorbs all the good that you guys can put into it out of what we can try and get you into a bulk extraction that's still quality.
Looks like I need a half gallon of fresh frozen goo, and I'll put it through my sesame press under a candle.
Come
Have
on,
you ever
Ratio.
considered the other way? Do you know like I also was thinking of feeding it to my triturating juicer. It's a juicer that works on corkscrews, not one that works on blades.
Yeah.
But there's that device and scaling that up because that's it focuses in a cone, so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you get your fractions along a length. So you could probably pull off the chlorophyll as the first juice before the oils start to build up and express. But that's got to have R&D funding to modify an already $1,500 juicer. I can't blow up mine. My wife.
Well, it'll pay for itself, Horatio. We built these presses by our patients' grace. We vended out. Shops all over Washington have what was our boo-boos. And the patients love the medicine so much that they funded our R&D. We wouldn't have got anywhere without our patients. Every penny that's gone into this has come from a couple of very good dispensaries in the area and has come 100% from the patients knowing the medicine was quality. So I can promise you the money's there.
What do you mean, like, because I mean, some people are reacting. What do you mean, like, funding on our boo-boos? Now, I know in the case of rosin, that's kind of it. Like, if the only boo-boo is moisture that could potentially spark grease into your eye, I see how those boo-boos are acceptable, where going up the hydrocarbon ladder, the boo-boos are detrimental. Yeah, they're everybody who funded their R&D did it laying people in their way.
Yeah, the boo-boo is a little bit of water.
Well, I mean, kind of like my process, the boo-boos are non-toxic, so it allows everyone to join in the developmental process.
You guys, I got to go. Have a blessed Sunday.
Peace out, Aaron.
Peace.
I didn't even know Aaron was sitting there this whole time.
No, he hasn't said a word. That was it. He's jet lagged.
Jet lag?
Yes. What time is it?
Just noon.
So what's going on, Bubbleman? You look like you're doing two shows at the same time.
What's that?
Are you double booked? Are you double booked right now? Are you doing Periscope and Hash Church at the same time?
No. Definitely not, but I do have the Hash Church chat open, and I am doing that. So they're all talking about rosin and frozen and frozen, and and I'm just like, I'm over here like, yeah, I spent 17 years begging and pleading with people to dry their water hash, not pressed hash with water in it. And now he's coining terms like frozen and pressing wet, watered, loaded bud into rosin.
Yeah, here's the issue. Here's the issue that I have.
I'm just kind of like, oh.
Water can be your friend and it can be your enemy. And the way it can be your enemy is moisture content in trapped containers and things that aren't able to breathe can produce molds. And when smoked, they can cause serious problems with patients that have autoimmune disorders and lung disease and things that are prone for ammonia and then possible death. So that's why when we always worked with the melts, and I liked everything that you did, was all about removing all the moisture out of whatever your starting material is. So therefore, the medicine which you make out of it is as clean as it can be and as dry as it can be. And you think of micro-contaminations, and you think of things like that. So either water is going to help you preserve something, or it's going to help you, unfortunately, create some kind of bacteria that you don't want to have there. So when you're taking fresh frozen bud and trying to make rosin out of it, yeah.
No, Tony, it's pressing of wet, like just making bubble hash and pressing the goo.
Oh,
that's kind of why I was like learning people loving your boo-boos. I'm like, I don't love that result. That'll kill me. And if that's why I'm like depending on your boo-boos, because
it also makes it harsh. Yes, it makes it harsher.
So like I didn't want that
take
culture
a little
going
patty.
out there. People now selling
take
$150 boo-boo.
Yeah, take that patty and either sieve it out and then dry it, or put it into a patty, and if you could get it into a -50 state, then you can do that, and then try to take the moisture out of it, like cure that out, and then press it. But don't press it like when it still has that much water.
And let me clarify. I guess I was really vague in that. I 100% believe in curing your bubble hash or any product that you're making. When we make bubble, we follow the guidelines that I learned from Mr. Bubbleman himself. What I'm leaning towards when I'm talking about bulk presses is the pure medicine side of getting everything out of the plant in an organic manner that then can give the scientist exactly what they need in an organic form that is basically clear of anything other than H2O and what that plant has to begin their process with. So when you're trying to smoke and make amazing product like what Bubbleman's getting ready to smoke on, yeah, what we vend and what we make comes from the best cured product that we could find. What we vended in Washington and made for the patients was made from the highest quality flower we could find in the state. So yeah, there's a difference. There's definitely a difference. You don't suggest smoking RSO, do you? I mean, that's going to be unhealthy for you, especially for your lungs. But as far as medicine goes, it saves lives. But we want to smoke phenomenal bubble hash. I got to smoke some of Frenchie's last night, and I was amazed. I was blown away at the terpenes in it. But that's still good medicine. It's just meant for a different form of consumption.
For sure.
It's just that fear that, just like live resin came out, the chase for terpene experiences, the more impressionable generation goes, holy shit, I know how I can get a market. If I sell this new frozen shit, people will go crazy over the terp profile, and they'll totally ignore the chest explosion, which, they'll just get told that's a part of the high. And the fact that it's reintroducing the downside to basically, we're at the point where bubbles shouldn't have molds unless it's, gray market. So to start a new trend that basically even puts more water in it. And I heard things like, well, you can put it in the freezer and the water will purge out. And I'm like, that's insane. I put oil in the freezer and water condenses in. So, like, there's a lot of people that are going to hear that and then try to make a market and claim that, you know, well, we just learned on our boo-boos, but it's all natural to make mistakes with water, but we did it for the terpene profile.
Terpene profile. Welcome back, D. Did you just come in? Yeah, you did.
Yep. Just.
Excellent.
I went and got a sandwich.
Oh. What you puffing on, D?
Some rosin and some. This is they're calling it here either Zen juice or juice, but it's another form of holy water done in a different form. But I don't know the way or anything like that. But I'm liking it. Very tasty. Nice stuff. I like it. It's like the holy water, if anybody knows what that one is.
Yes, I do. I've seen the holy water. Whenever I'm in Spain or Amsterdam, I'm around the holy water. Jux and Flux and Jigga always have it, and they're always generous and offer it. But I've never hit it yet. I've never had. I've smelt it.
Well, if you'd like to hit it, we can hit it one day, Mark. I know how you are about your stuff, though. But do some research on it. Maybe you'll find that it's safe to put in you.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when they don't tell us how they made it.
Mm-hmm. But I did ask about the solvent and if there's any solvent in it, if it's solventless. And from what I understand, it is solventless.
Oh,
yeah. A distillation process and pulling terps out and putting terps back in. I don't know the process because I am definitely not that savvy to that stuff. So I won't even try to think I am or try to put across that I am. But
they didn't use a chemical solvent to extract it, though.
They did not use a chemical solvent to extract it. No, not at all.
That's good.
Now, did they use the language solvent-free or solvent-less? Because if they say solvent-free, they're basically saying, I guarantee the end result is solvent-free, but it's still extracted with a solvent.
I asked if I said solventless. I did do that technical term on it as well, just because, you know, I am that savvy on it for sure. But from the teachings of yourself and Mark and that sort of stuff, and from Hash Church, right? Like I do know a few things to ask, and I did ask that, and that's the impression I got fully was that there's no solvents using to get this extraction. But you know what? Don't take my word for it because I don't know, man. I could be being tricked, but I doubt it. I do take the guy's word for it because he seems to be a pretty decent guy, and you know.
Probably doesn't want to have his orbital lobe crushed in either. So.
What?
I know. I'm just joking.
Mark, always with the orbital bone, eh? One time. Well, 15 times it happens. It's not my fault.
Hey, D, what's the difference in the high? Do you notice a different high or an onset with the holy water?
Yes.
And if so, what's the difference? Can you explain? Because a lot of people have heard about holy water. I've fortunately have tried various times, but a lot of people haven't, so they're wondering the difference and effect. Could you explain?
Okay. When I the first time that I got to smoke it, I believe, was yesterday, and or just the other day, a couple days ago. And when I smoked it and got a couple totes, it basically, literally, like a blanket, came right over every part of me and went right to my fingertips. Like if you took the toke and just closed your eyes and laid back, you would feel it go right through you and right to every part of your body. It's very uplifting. When I smoked it last night, about 5 in a row, you could not, by any means, punch the smile off of my face. My muscles were in a permanent smile, like an acid grin. You couldn't move it. And it was very nice. It was enjoyable. It made me laugh. It made me feel like a fucking teenager getting stoned again, honestly. It made me sweat. Like, it was very good experience. Johnny B, he smoked it as well, and he was having, he was at the end of his day pretty much. He'd done his eating and everything like that, and he's been medicating, so he's not too bad, but he's in a bit of a fucking spot where he's starting to get cranky and not feeling good because of his pains and all that sort of stuff. Well, he took a toke of that, and the first toke he took of it, and he literally fucking come out of his seat, went around the table, shook the guy's hand, was like, oh my God, I've never felt that good off of one toke. It gave me a breath of fresh air. It was like it took everything away. And, so for a guy that was in a lot of pain, it probably really helps a lot. But for me, I have my aches and pains all the time, but definitely not as severe as Johnny's. It made me feel good, and I really enjoyed the buzz. Slept like a baby, like instantly. I was impressed. I liked it, and I dipped my dry sip with it or my rosin into it and take a toke. It's absolutely amazing. I like it a lot.
Dude, and I wouldn't say that your pain is that much less than Johnny B's. When I heard you both tell your stories side by side, yours is pretty much just as crazy as his, dude.
Yeah, I guess. I just
hitting your arms and your legs and breaking your back and shit. And
yeah, back, neck, ripping both arms out, both legs out of the socket, steel on both sides of my face. I broke this wrist a few times, and my hands have just been gnarled most of my life, and it's just, I've had lots of breaks and stuff. I just live with it a bit better, I guess. I don't know. I can't say, because I see his pain does affect him a lot more than mine affects me. Maybe I just hide it better. I don't know, but
I'm thinking both of you are probably in a substantial amount of pain from the stories that I've heard you tell. Nonetheless, when John told me his story, it blew me away. When you told me your story, it blew me away.
And then your buddy told his story, and it blew ours right out of the fucking water.
Yeah. Also, my other buddy was there, who was in the coma and had the huge brutal accident and the spleen and everything. He was also at the table, but my buddy that had the tractor roll over him, who broke every single bone in his body, yeah, he was like, we were all just like, here's your...
yeah. It's like fucking, four guys sitting around a table at a bar talking about fight stories. Yeah, I fought this one guy, he was 200 pounds. Then the next guy, oh, I fought 3 of those guys, that wasn't too bad, I took them all out. And then the next guy's up to 4 or 5. Well, this guy, he fought a whole ninja gang that fucking flew over from fucking Ninja Town, and he killed them all and slayed them all, compared to the fucking war stories. Like, that was brutal, man.
Plus, he was a kid.
Yes. Yeah, brutal. Topped our war stories like fucking like the biggest cherry on top of the sundae. Wow.
And the way he said it was so... You know what also was crazy, if you think about it, is the size of all of you. You had my friend Aaron, who was kind of a smaller guy, and then there's Johnny B, who's a little bit bigger than him, and then there's you, who's bigger than Johnny B, and then there was my friend, who is bigger than all of you guys.
Yeah, we had all suffered greatly at certain points in our life. Maybe a couple different times.
What a great metaphor. What a great metaphor for life in itself, in the sense that there's always someone going through intense shit. People are going through more than you realize, so give them the benefit of the doubt. Even if they're not wearing it on their face, people are going through heavy shit all around us, and it's just good to have some consideration for that every now and then.
When I was growing up and people around me getting headaches, these migraine headaches and stuff, I was never understanding of it. Like, how can it be that bad? Like, until I started getting migraine headaches, and it was debilitating. Literally laying in a dark room, fucking just feeling like your head's gonna fucking pop and everything else. I understand. Some people go through it, like that one guy, Phil. He goes through the cluster migraines. Oh my God. The stories he was telling me was, holy shit, man. That's terrible, man.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of suffering. We'll have to get Phil back on Hash Church to tell us what he's been up to, and see how he's currently dealing with those cluster headaches, because there's lots of people that get those as well, migraines of all different sorts. I think clusters is just sort of at the top of the list for.
Well, he makes those grapeseed oil pills infused with CBDs, high CBDs, and he's given me some, and when I've started to get my migraines, the onset of them, I've taken 2 of those. I don't get a buzz in any way, shape, or form off them, but I do get rid of the headache. And that fucking...
You would generally take your buzz away. It's the buzz killer.
Yeah. It really helps me out.
I know Rob loves smoking CBD.
Should we do a bong
wait.
rip?
That's not true. Yeah, we should do a bong rip. We should do a bong rip. I'm going to cut church short in about 10, 15 minutes here and get on. My family's been waiting for me patiently on our vacation here, and they're just swimming in the pool right now. I can see my little guy sitting in front of the stairs. The little tuft of hair up in the middle. Very cute.
He's always smiling, too.
He likes to smile, there's no doubt about it.
Especially when he sees those little watermelons, eh?
Oh my God, he trips right out. And no, Darrin is not talking about my wife's breast. He's actually talking about watermelons.
I was not talking about your wife's breasts at all. Jesus Christ.
I know.
Did someone
you're pressing up a whack. What's that?
So before you go in earlier, but I do want to hear from D, because I saw John's Periscope. You guys were heavily attacked this week as peaceful demonstrators there in Vancouver, and a lot of people want to know what the hell's going to happen next, because you guys were great reporting it, and you know, John especially for making sure his Periscope was running so he could see really what was going on. But it was a shock to me as an American to see that happen to you Canadians on a nice peaceful day, on Canada Day, being mob tackled, but then to see you actually surround the police and drum them out was very heartening. So much fucking respect.
Well, that was the first time I've ever been involved in anything like that myself. We just walked down there and all of a sudden it happened. So I filmed what I could. I honestly felt like getting in there and kicking fucking cops in the head and fucking going for it, because that's just the inner me just wanting to go for it. But, you know, I'm 45 years old. I didn't want to get in there that much and, you know, make them forced to be fucking having to take me away, right? Because I'm a bit of a menace when it comes down to that sort of thing. And Johnny, well, he fucking went nuts. He needed an out. He needed a release for himself. And that day he took it, and he was right in their faces, like, "Fuck you, motherfuckers!" And you know, he's a weed warrior, that's for sure. And you know, big props for that sort of stuff. But one thing I'd like to just put in the brains of everybody, because I've talked with this a little bit myself, and I don't want to go against any type of protests of any sort, but I wonder what the day would have turned out like if we had been asked, like we were asked, to move it somewhere else and not have it there, because the activism, the protesting that has been done has resulted in so many good things happening, and the mayor has also given so many things and gone against the federal government and done this stuff. So I'm just wondering what would have happened if everybody would have said, you know what, let's go to Stanley Park this year, or let's just fucking move it like they asked, only because we've got pretty much everything we've wanted now, so let's go with that, because what are we actually protesting now? That's my thing there, right? Like, I agree with everything, and I don't think, you know, I think the cops didn't beat up too many people, but I don't think I think it could have been a little bit more peaceful and handled a little bit better, because...
Well, it was political. It was between mainly like the people who represent all of the activists, the Emerys,
because they were the ones in contact, cannabis culture or whoever is being responsible, whether it's Jeremiah or they're the ones that are in touch with the city, and the city just asked them, like if it's possible, like we don't want people vending pot on Canada Day. Just because it's Canada Day, like there's a bunch of people that just got their citizenships, there's like people are celebrating Canada Day. They're like, yeah, go have it at another event, because your protest used to be a protest, but now you're renting out booths, you've got stages, you've got porta potties. This is now an event. So what everyone else in the city, anyone else, this is not like a rule just for cannabis people. You are required to get a permit for such an event. So people do it for concerts, people do it for festivals. I've been to all sorts, and they do give these permits. They're not impossible to get. It's just we're changing. We've protested so much that we've got ourselves to a level where it's like, what are you protesting? It's like you asked for dispensaries, and now we're regulating them. You can have dispensaries. We went against the federal government. Now you want to come and sell weed on Canada Day out in front of the art gallery where all the people are. I can attest, I don't like seeing my friends be beaten by cops, but I'm with Darrin. It would have been amazing to see what choice, if we would have simply made the choice to just go. It's not like they were saying you can't have it. They were just saying go do it at a different place. Stanley Park's pretty beautiful.
And not to downplay the guys that were fucking front line, putting their faces in there and going for it. Like, good for you guys, man. I'm proud of everything. But my question would be, what if we did it differently? And because it just sort of happened. All of a sudden, it was chaos. As soon as I was there for fucking 3 minutes, I seen Big Jeff, went up, shook his hand, said hello, and then all of a sudden, boom, chaos. I pulled my phone out and started filming. It's the only thing I could do because, look, I go to jail, man. They don't let me out. They don't give me bail. I go to jail when they fucking get a hold of me. That's it. So I didn't feel like going to jail that day myself.
Well, not to protest the right for a bunch of people to come sell herb out on the sidewalk in booths. Not for that. That's like, man, I'll protest for dispensaries and for medical patients but not like on Canada. It just, I don't know. It just seemed like I was minorly bummed. I was big time bummed for the cops being like utter and complete douchebags, pepper spraying people and arresting people. But at the same time, I just didn't feel like it was our finest moment.
I think we should really practice just the proper protocol, right? Like, I don't know, and I don't know what that protocol would be, but maybe people need to get together before these events and get it out there.
Well, you know what? Maybe the events could be real events. They could really be like a serious, like the amount of people that want to come and gather, and the Emerys and cannabis culture, they've always known how to throw an event. Even though it started as protest, it's been happening for so long that they've become good at throwing events. So it's like, fuck, let's do it. Let's get a permit. Let's have an event. Let's have many events. Get the word out and let people feel safe. Every year in the past, Vancouver cops have stood there and done nothing. Now, we fought for dispensaries, and the city gave us dispensaries, but then on a side note, probably at that meeting, someone was like, okay, yeah, they can have dispensaries, but so let's make it now so they don't have to go sell weed out on in front of the art gallery, because it's already available. Why do you have to sell it in an open public forum with no license, when you just fought and protested for the right to sell in licensed dispensaries? I wish someone had the other perspective right now and they could tell me why, because I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying what I'm saying right now is right. I just see it as a perspective, like we fought to get to a level, and then when we got to that level, we should have realized that, oh, okay, well now we're not here anymore. We're over here at a different level, and we just have to operate accordingly as we.
And I was caught up in the mob mentality of it too, like fuck the police and everything, right?
Well, that was the part that was the most that I didn't. Some of the things that were screamed in the background just didn't seem like it was. I mean, I know I've been there. I've been there when the police are getting rowdy and rough and it's intense. It just
it's you know.
I hate to judge on it, but it just seemed like pushing for no, they won't tell us to do the anarchy position. They won't tell it. If anything they tell us, if it changes us doing what we want, we'll make an issue of it. It seemed to be trying to draw the police into becoming that police state monster. So when an incident occurs, you set yourself up when it's like, I'm going to sell weed openly, and they're like, okay, I'm sorry, I have to arrest you. You can't do that to him. You know, that's the setup.
He didn't even ask to arrest him. He said, if you got to stop selling herb openly or I'll arrest you. It's actually on video. And then Neil says, you should just walk away right now. Like, that was the quote that he said to the cop. He was, I am going to continue to openly sell herb here on the street. Which was like, oh, like you put that cop in a bad situation when you said that to him. Plus now the cops are like, they're cops. It's like, do you really want to like, even at the events where the cops haven't protested, I have been arrested before, so I'm just generally paranoid around cops. I know that it can just go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat, and I really hate that experience. I hated to see it in Vancouver the day after Oregon, like, was celebrating that you could buy herb and hashes there. We were getting arrested by the police at our what's always been a peaceful protest. It's a changing world very fast. That's for sure.
Hey Rob, you look like you have a question. Do you have a question? No.
Rob's just chilling and enjoying. I'm going to pretty much call it a day here on that note, actually, because I need to get myself going with the family here. I did appreciate everyone coming in and sharing their time and sharing their perspectives. And I'll finish it off with telling you guys about this guy that I just got turned on to. I don't have cable, but he's got some. He was a host of some show called Brain Nerds, maybe, or Brain something. His name's Jason Silva. And I'll finish it with, he's got a concept, you can Google it on YouTube, called radical openness. And I think that it's really what Hash Church is kind of about. It's about just having dialogue, having ideas, and having them go back and forth. And he's talking about how these ideas themselves can actually, you know, almost procreate in a sex-type manner, where those ideas then have ideas and give birth to new ideas. And I just appreciate you guys coming in and sharing your perspectives and your ideas. And I hope that you continue to do so. And we'll see you guys all in 1 week, 7 days, for Hash Church 42. Thanks for coming in, everybody. Much love.